Hello and welcome to Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, retrospectives, and more here on the GeekVerse podcast network. I am your host, Dylan Muss, and today I'm joined by the captain of Gondor himself, Kirklin. Welcome back to Sidequest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very good. Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's nice being like back-to-back SideQuest episodes. And like you and I just did a newscast yesterday too, so it's just you and I have been doing lots of casts together, which I very much enjoy. So yeah, I'm happy to be here and talk about my favorite genre, Lord of the Rings.
It really is like blown up to be a genre of its own, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, in accordance with, you'll see on the main feeds now, if you're on Patreon, you're getting this stuff early, that, you know, the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power TV shows around the corner, and in doing that, we're going to retrospective all of the movies, the animated, the live action, so I guess that's nine movies on the main feeds. And, you know, I wanted to dedicate an episode of SideQuest to talk about some of our favorite Lord of the Rings video games. I don't think we're going to go as deeply on each one as we will like the individual movies per se, but more just talking about, like, you know, playing some from back in the day. There was even many that came up before, even like the live action trilogy. So those are interesting. I don't think I have any of those on my list, but they exist. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. To get some plugs out of the way, make sure to join the GeekVerse Discord for some good times, conversations all around. Join our Patreon to get episodes early and ad-free. Make sure to subscribe to that SideQuest feed and drop a review as well. Reviews go a long way. So please, do me a favor and drop one of those, a little 5-star moment if you feel the show deserves it. 4, 3 if you think I deserve that. Like, come on, like, let me know what I can do better, and we'll get SideQuest to that next level to get you back to that 5-star. The Twitters, the Facebooks, Instagrams, the TikToks, all that good stuff. Thank you to Amanda, who does the music for SideQuest, and Taylor, who does the thumbnails. As I said, Lord of the Rings Retro is going into like full gear now. I don't know what kind of stuff's released on the main feed right now. It might just be on Patreon at this point, but those things will be dropping soon on the main feed. If you want to get them now, hop over to our Patreon. I know we're actually not recording any this week, but next week we're recording 2 more, and those will go on Patreon right away for you. Last week was our 7-year anniversary cast. That was a lot of fun. Kirklin, me and you did a newscast yesterday where we talked about the Rings of Power trailer that came out yesterday. And we talked about that trailer, 2-minute trailer, for about 50 minutes. So if you want more Lord of the Rings content, yesterday has got you covered. You can follow Kirklin on Twitter at Kirklin and me at Dylan Muss. And, follow me on Backloggd too. My name is Rapatika over there, and you can check out some of the reviews and see what else. And, it's a fun little community over there, so go check that out. Anything else you would like to shout out in the top here, Kirk?
No, I think you nailed it. Yeah,
all right.
We just got tons of podcast stuff coming out, so just keep your eyes on all those multiple feeds. But
yes,
yeah, I think I'm ready to go.
Sweet. So yeah, we're gonna. There's no news today, and there's gonna be no games we've been playing section, any of that stuff. We're just gonna talk about Lord of the Rings. We're talking about first just some of our favorite games, and then at the end we'll go in and talk about what we'd like to see for the for that IP, what we'd like to see from it in the years to come, all that good stuff. So before we actually talk about any individual game, I just want to say, when I was doing some research for this episode, watching some videos, checking out the Wikipedia page, like what are all the Lord of the Rings games? On Wikipedia, there's just under 60 games that exist for Lord of the Rings, which is fucking insane, right? Like, that is crazy. A lot of them are going to be like old text-based adventure kind of things on like old PCs, Commodore, all that weird stuff. And then, there's a lot of mobile games as well that you maybe wouldn't count, some even Flash games in there. So that bumps that number up. But even just like, console games as you would expect them, there's still like a good chunk of those. So there has been a lot of games. And, we are only going to, dip our toes in the water, therefore, because I've only played a handful, really. And there's like, many, many more apparently that I just never knew existed until honestly today when I was doing some research. So it's a pretty wild world.
That's shocking to me, honestly, because when I was looking, just Googling like what other Lord of the Rings games are there that I'm the ones that I couldn't just list at the top of my head. And definitely like there's some Game Boy Advance games, which sure, like those slipped through the cracks for me. Like I probably wasn't aware of those ones, but yeah.
We're gonna talk about one of them because I am hyped on one of them. I haven't played it, but I was like, wow, I can't believe this exists. I gotta check this out. But
right on. Yeah. But no, just under 60. That blows my mind, because I feel like if someone gun to my head, like how many Lord of the Rings games are there, I probably would have said somewhere in the realm of like 20 something.
Yeah.
Like, I can't list 20. I would have just assumed it would have been something like that. But under 60, that's impressive, because I feel like we need 60 more. Honestly, I could take all the Lord of the Rings content.
we've got about 12 or 15 on our list, so we'll talk about a good chunk of them here. But I also want to just say that the IP has switched hands a lot of times. For years, it was just kind of a scattershot of all sorts of different developers, and then for a while, it was EA that was making a lot of them. That was kind of when the Lord of the Rings trilogy was coming out in the early 2000s. EA had the IP there, so they were releasing games. I think they released around like maybe 10 games under EA, and then it obviously went over to Warner Bros. At some point. That's where we've seen the IP stay for most of that time, and then I think they've maybe licensed it out to some smaller studios over time, maybe some mobile studios and stuff like that. But I got to say, like, one huge critique I have with, I mean, this is always going to be the case with IP stuff where rights is a bit more tricky, but the availability for this stuff is horrible. Like, on Steam, I think there's maybe four or five Lord of the Rings games, Hobbit, like, including all that. There's, like, the Lego games, of course, the Middle-earth ones, I almost said Elder Scrolls Online, Lord of the Rings Online, couple things like that. Maybe a card game or two, but like there is very little. There's like nothing on the Switch eShop. I think maybe even I don't even think the Lego games are on the Switch at this point. When I was searching Xbox store, there's like nothing. So it's really hard to get access to these things, and that kind of sucks. I mean, I don't know how easy they're finding through like emulators or just if you find them online through other means. But yeah, it's too bad because I wanted to like maybe check out some of these ones that look cool to me, but they're just hard to get a hold of. So, check your local game shop. They might have some used copies, but in terms of like some of these old PC ones, they might be very, very difficult to track down, and that's kind of a bummer.
It definitely is a bummer. Like the main one that I want to get my hands on. I don't know why they haven't remastered it, and we will talk about it. But is Battle for Middle Earth? Like that's like the RTS Lord of the Rings game, and I feel like everyone that I've talked to about that game, they're like, "Oh man, that game was so fantastic!" Like nobody's like critiqued that in like a negative sense. That game. And like you just can't get it. Like I swear, like maybe I saw like one copy on eBay for like an obscene amount of money or something like that. But I'm like, how have they not just like made a digital copy of this game? Like, again, it's an RTS. I don't know how difficult it is to just like translate that to like a PC, like because I think those originally came out on Xbox. I don't know if they were always PC, but I think even like Travis has like an original Xbox copy, but it just doesn't work on like the more modern consoles. So it's such a bummer because I think we were gonna plug that in one 24-hour stream, and then we were all super hyped, and then just immediately deflated that you put it in. It's just like does not read. So that's very much a bummer. But like even just the other games that I mean, some of the ones that are on our list, and it's really weird that they just haven't done anything to like breathe new life into those games, or even just like make them like accessible. Like we just can't play those, and because they come out so long ago, like if you haven't played those, like you just SOL, like you just shit out of luck, like you can't actually play those, which is kind of it's really really upsetting. And Battle for Middle Earth in particular, I believe that was during the EA era, so that one makes sense why it's not, but like that's not a good reason. Like they should find a way to make it happen, because I was thinking too, I'm like, oh, EA had this whole phase with Lord of the Rings. Game Pass and EA have that partnership there. I wonder if there's anything on Game Pass PC that I can go check out. But like, there's nothing. Like, they just don't have any of those games, and I guess they just can't put them on there anymore. They don't have access to them, or they can't go in there and like release a new update for them or something. I'm not sure how the rights works there, but it's a real bummer. That would be huge. Imagine like Game Pass at one of their showcases, even if it wasn't a new thing. It was just like, hey, here's 10 Lord of the Rings games that are playable on your Xbox. I'll say at least for PC, but then maybe some of them on Xbox, and you can play them today. Like all these EA old games, like especially in line with the Rings of Power. That would be so cool, and I think that would actually get a lot of people to check out your service too. If that was like the only way you could play them, like if they're still not on Steam, for example, but that was how they became available. Personally, that would work for me, but they should just put them everywhere they can. But yeah, I hope that changes. But I think with IP stuff like this, it's really hard, especially when it's changed hands and now it's Warner Bros. And they don't get any money probably if they want to release this EA thing unless there's like a partnership happening. But EA is probably not going to do that because why would they? So yeah, it's a total mess. I'd hope to see that get fixed in time. But and I also wonder too, for like some of those like Battle for Middle Earth, can Warner Bros. Make a sequel to that, or would they have to make like they could just put a new name on it, like War for Middle Earth? Like, is that are they okay in that sense, or like I don't know. We'll talk about maybe some of that when we talk about sequels later on. But yeah. Sorry, you gonna say something there? Well, I was gonna add on to that one specifically, but I guess we can wait till we get to that
Sure.
specific game on like the sequels. So yeah, I'll hold my tongue.
Okay, let's get into our first game here, and we're just gonna take this very randomly. I'll just pick one, then you can pick one. We'll just kind of go back and forth. But I want to start by talking about the movie tie-in games from when in that era, early 2000s, when every big movie, every big blockbuster had a game that came out around the same time or within a year. Usually not the best games because they were very, crunched for development time and budget and all that stuff. And, they're already, you're kind of going into trouble if you're making a game that's like, okay, here's the story. We have to match these beats. We have to get these actors and voice actors. Like, they just have not as much creative freedom. So they're going to end up maybe not being the best games. But those movie tie-in games, personally, the one I had was the Two Towers on the GameCube, and that was the one I played. And I just played it like endlessly. I think in that one you could play as Aragorn, Legolas, or Gimli. And I think I probably played through the whole like campaign as all of them like multiple times, doing all this extra good stuff. But yeah, those ones I remember very fondly from back in the day. Did you play any of those ones?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I love those. I can't remember if it was Fellowship or Two Towers was like the first one that I played. But I feel like I don't know if I was just like seeing the movie and then played those and I was just really hyped on it, or if I was just like mostly playing the games and I was just like that's where I was kind of getting the story, because you do go through the story of it, right? And then you have like the cutscenes sometimes when you finish a level. But man, I love those games. Like I didn't own them personally at the time. I did later on. I think I like was just begging my parents to get to get me with the Return of the King one. But no, they were, in my opinion, I think those were actually really solid games. Like you would level up your different characters, and then like as you were stating, like you have like the three amigos. You got Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas. But then definitely in Return of the King, like you got access to Gandalf when he was like the White Wizard, and he was just so OP. I remember he was just so strong. If I couldn't beat a level, I would go in as Gandalf and just absolutely demolish. But then there'd be like Hobbit sections, so then you would play as either Frodo or Sam.
Right.
And then I don't know if it was like you had to beat the game, but you could actually unlock more. And again, like I don't know if I'm talking about a specific game or if they're like mixing in my memory just because it's been so long. But like again, like I don't know if it was a cheat that you would unlock, but you could actually get like Faramir, and like some other like characters that like were just added on, which was so fantastic. And yeah, those games were so much fun, and it was sweet that you could go in like 2-player on like couch co-op, so that made it really, again, just accessible to play if you have a friend with you or something like that. And yeah, those games were so fun. Those games, they were fantastic. And I think now looking back on them, they're probably pretty dated, but like I think in that era they just fit so well.
Yeah, I it's one of those things too where like I actually have played it in recent times. Me and Travis, I don't think this was a stream. I think I was just at his house one time hanging out. Maybe it was before or after a podcast or something. We were feeling nostalgic. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was around the Hobbit retro. We're like, we need some Lord of the Rings goodness in our life. But we went, we were playing a bit of that, played some co-op, and I don't know. I remember that not being the best experience, but I don't think it's soured my view on it. But, recently... I'm at my parents' place right now. My dad's trying to get rid of a bunch of stuff, so he's like, "Look through all this stuff. What do you want to keep?" And I found my Two Towers GameCube. I'm like, "Oh, I'm bringing this home because I actually want to boot this up and just mess around with it. Maybe play through it once again. Check out these unlocks, check out these characters. Because I don't know, they were like so fun. Just like the third person action of it, going through the story, the levels. I really can't even like pinpoint a specific thing. Like I don't know if they had great combat. I don't know if it was great retellings of the stories. I know the visuals are a bit chunky and dated at this point, but yeah, those were just a great time. And honestly, I want to go back and play through the rest of the trilogy because, like I said, for whatever reason I only had Two Towers. It's probably because it was used at Blockbuster, and that's like the one we ended up buying, something like that.
Well, it was weird too because I feel like in Two Towers there was moments of like Fellowship, and then in Return of the King there was moments of Two Towers. Like there was some levels that would kind of cross over in the game. So that's why it's kind of hard for me to remember like what specific game. But I will say I remember specifically in Return of the King. I think it was the last level when you're at the Black Gate, and there's just like waves of enemies coming. I remember too because the cutscene, it has like the mouth of Sauron, and it while you're fighting, it has like Frodo's mithril chain vest like on the ground. Like I remember it so specifically. And I fucking failed that level probably like 60 times. Like I just could not beat it. Like it was so hard for me. And there's a couple levels like that. Like too, I remember in and again, I don't know if this was Two Towers or Fellowship. It would have fit with Fellowship because that's what happened. But when like the sequence when they're in Parthgalen and Boromir dies, but you're fighting that one orc that kills Boromir. You remember like the big brute Uruk-hai with like, the big bow?
Lurtz, I think, is his name, right?
Oh yeah, I'm very impressed that you knew his name. Like that character, I remember that boss battle being very difficult. So I remember like a handful of boss battles, probably because I had to replay them so many times. So it just got, like cemented in my brain. But yeah, all in all, like I thought those games were so fun. Like when you're defending Helm's Deep, like those levels were so fun. Because it's not just like, okay, defeat these enemies and you'll win. They'll be like, okay, you're defending this section, and then it'll move on to the next stage of like the siege, and it felt really intense and epic. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, that was. It's funny that you're mentioning that, because when Travis was maybe gonna join us for this episode, but he wanted us to shout out the wave mode. So I don't know if that was the wave mode like a specific thing, like maybe when you beat the campaign you unlocked a wave mode, or was it just like those certain levels like Helm's Deep or the Black Gate that you would have maybe like a wave section? I can't remember the specifics of that, but
I can't remember exactly either, because I remember definitely there was levels that had that aspect, because as I was mentioning, like the Battle of the Black Gate, it's just like enemies coming, and then there'll be harder enemies, and then maybe a boss would appear afterwards. But like I don't know if you beat the game and then you unlock a wave mode specific. Maybe I'll Google while you're talking, but because like I remember also when Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas go into like to basically recruit like I think they're called the Unforgiven, like the skeletons that they recruit, and then at the end they're just like super OP. They come in Pelennor Fields and just take over like everyone. But I remember that having like a wave sequence sort of thing.
That's
where,
cool.
Like, you just had to defeat a certain amount of enemies. But I'll look into that.
Sure, yeah, check it out. And yeah, I think I mean, I definitely, like I said, I want to like check this game out again, just boot it up and see how it feels. But I also, I was checking my local game store, like, as they have like all what they have available online, and they have a bunch of these random Lord of the Rings games, and they're usually pretty cheap. So I might pick up a bunch of them and I'll talk. I don't know if I'll do another retro episode where we talk about this stuff, or if I would just bring it up in the games we've been playing section on Sidequest up in the next couple months here. But I might pick up a few, and I might pick up these other like. Fellowship and Return of the King, since I didn't have those ones back in the day.
I was gonna say I don't know if I have more than like one, but I definitely have a one, so I'll check out which one it is. Then if you want to borrow, you can totally claim it. It's my on GameCube for sure, that one.
Sweet,
and
sounds good.
As I was googling, I completely forgot about this, but like after the level 2, depending on which character you would have, it would give you like a score on how well you did. I completely forgot about that, but I just remember getting like that dopamine rush when you just like you get like a perfect score or something. Like you really ace that level. Again, it's such like a dated system of just having like like, oh, I did these things, and then it's just like telling me how I did, and then you level up your character that way. But I'm just going on a nostalgia ride, just like the more I look into this game. Because I played it so much. Oh, it was so fantastic.
Well, let's take our first ad break here, and we'll continue this nostalgia ride into the next game. We are back. Kirklin, how about you decide where are we gonna jump next? What series or which one we want to talk about next?
Let's actually, I forgot to write down this one in the notes because it just popped in my mind. But this was actually one that came out in like September of last year. It's a phone app. It's called The Lord of the Rings, just War. I didn't know that's what it was called.
Yeah.
So did you check this one out?
I think I tried to download it on my phone, but my phone's a bit too old and it wouldn't let me do it. But I wanted to check it out.
I was incredibly hyped for this game, and so with me saying that, you can probably tell how I feel about it now, because I was really looking forward to it. I think all like the screenshot, it looked really, really cool. I actually joined like a pre-order list. It's a free game, but I still like pre-ordered, as in it would like download the second it was out.
Right.
Because I was like, oh my god, a Lord of the Rings app, and I don't know if it was just like because I was talking about it so much, my phone is like giving me the algorithms of like every ad was for this game. And then it comes out, I boot it up, you make your username, you choose your faction, you choose like your faction leader. It was so cool of an opening. You choose an actual like ring of power, and then you
that's
like
neat.
You choose like a custom like symbol for it. And I'm like, man, this game is so cool. It has a really cool opening. As soon as I got into the gameplay, I think I played for like 1 minute and I just uninstalled it. I was so unimpressed. It's one of those where you just kind of have like a base, and then it's pretty like complex too. Like it didn't seem very like beginner friendly for me to get into. Again, maybe I didn't have patience for it. Maybe I was too dumb for it. But it just it's one of those where I feel like you always have to be like interacting with it, because if you don't, like, you'll just be getting like raided by others, because it's just like a big multiplayer game. But I remember being so hyped because I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna choose like my leader's gonna be like the Witch King of Angmar, and then I'm gonna have like Angmar as a faction, which I just feel like you don't ever really see that much.
Of course,
And then I was extremely disappointed by the gameplay. So again, like
it sounds like a Castle Crashers kind of knockoff.
I think it's something like that, and like even just like the campaign.
Oh no, sorry, Clash of Clans. That's what I was looking for, not Castle Crashers.
Okay. Oh, Castle Crashers. Yeah, it's a great game. But yeah, like this was, I just wanted to mention it as like a Lord of the Rings game that I have played in recent times, but I was extremely just upset with it because I was so hyped, and then as soon as I realized what it was, it's like, oh, I can't play this game. But I mean, looking at it on like the iOS App Store, like it says it's 4.4 stars. Like, you know, a lot of people seem to be enjoying it, so maybe they've changed a lot of things. Maybe I'll have to reinstall it, but yeah, it
seems very like I was just watching the trailer, and it's like very mobile game, even though there's like these timers that you got to wait for them to tick down, and they probably want you to come back every day and get those microtransactions. There's gems and all that greasy stuff that you don't want too much of. But I don't know if it's a good game, like, you know, put $10 in, get the ad-free version. Maybe it's like decent, but yeah, I don't know if it's worth it.
It was just like the marketing, man. It was working for me. Like every shot, and of course it's like concept art, so it's not actually gameplay. But like every image of like Gandalf staring down like the Witch King, I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. And then, as I said, like that opening sequence was probably one of the coolest opening sequences to a game like I've played. Not even limiting to like iOS or mobile game. Like I was just so impressed that you could like choose your ring of power. It had like a different significance to it. And then once I got into the game, it was just like a quick uninstall. But so yeah,
brutal.
Glad I remember that one to at least talk about, because I don't think I've ever like told that story either. I think it was just like Shay. I was just like, oh my god, like sure, like I was probably just like milking to her how excited I am for this game. And she's like, oh, how'd that game go? Just like, don't even talk to me about it. Like, I just want to forget about that I even tried it. But
yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, that seems to be, unfortunately, the like the lifeblood of Lord of the Rings games right now is mobile. Like, they're releasing a ton of them, and there was another one announced recently. I think me and Taylor talked about on Sidequest that doesn't have too much info on it yet, but it was just announced. But like, obviously, there's another game coming out in September that we'll talk about a bit later on. But yeah, it's too bad that there's really, like, in terms of the AAA or even AA space, like console games, it seems like there's maybe one every few years, or kind of one in development at a time sort of thing. But then, like, you know, they're putting most of their resources into making these mobile games. So, I mean, you know, they could be solid too, but it's not really what I'm looking for personally. So let's jump into the next game then. Where do we want to go? I'm going to bring this one up. So Guardians of Middle-earth is a game that I did not know existed until today when I was doing my research. And I wanted to bring this one up because, obviously, me as a big Han fan, shouts Out of Mana episode me and Briggs recently did, and you as a League of Legends guy, like, did you know there was a Lord of the Rings MOBA that exists or like existed? I don't know if you can still play it. Like, I couldn't find it on Steam, so I don't know where else you'd buy it.
I did not.
But
I feel like I should have, because there was definitely a period of time where like one of my good friends, Quinn, who I played like League of Legends a lot with, there was this time where we were just trying out a bunch of different MOBAs. I'm surprised we didn't try Han, because there was one, it was like Infinite Crisis, which was like a DC one. It was actually really cool, and then it got discontinued. But like the gameplay was really janky, but like you could play as like different versions of Batman and stuff, and like a bunch of different DC characters. So it was actually pretty cool. But yeah, I'm surprised we didn't find this one, because we were finding like the most obscure MOBAs that like a lot of people probably haven't even heard of.
I'm surprised you didn't venture past Han then. That's too bad. But yeah, Guardians of Middle-earth, it's got a pretty solid roster. Like, and there's a good like 30-40 characters, and of course you're gonna have like forces of good and forces of evil. So this is another, I think, a good way to play as a bunch of evil characters, and a lot that I don't even recognize. I don't even know a lot of the names when I was looking at the roster. Weirdly, it looks like you can't play as Aragorn, but you can play as Arathorn, which I think to me is like a miss. Like, you can have Arathorn for sure, but you gotta have Aragorn too. I mean, you gotta have him. I think Legolas is in there. Once again, I don't know if I saw Frodo, but I saw Bilbo. So there's some weird stuff on the roster, but overall looked pretty solid. But I don't know, just when I watched the gameplay, I was like immediately turned off. I was like, this does not look good, just in terms of the visual quality, but also just like the gameplay. It just looked very slow paced, and I don't know, even the way the creep equivalents, like the minion characters, whatever they're called in this game, walked around, just, I don't know, was not doing it for me. But I don't know, I'm curious if this game still exists, because I would hop into a game just to see what the hell's going on there.
It's weird. It says that it was released on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 as well as Microsoft Windows. That kind of, I feel like,
Wow.
I feel like only now we're starting to see like some MOBAs on console. Maybe there's like Smite. I think that's one that is on console.
Yeah, and that's like more third person over the shoulder, right? So that's more built from the ground up for consoles.
It's just like for this to like, like PS3, like that's like ancient technology nowadays. It's kind of surprising to me.
As of April 2019, Steam this game was removed from Steam, so I guess I didn't want to support the servers anymore. But yeah, I mean, it actually came out like earlier than I thought. 2012, like that's kind of nice, right there in the pocket of when the MOBA craze was like just. I guess it had already been kind of going on for a year or two, but that seems like a pretty good time to get. It's not like they were past the wave of like people getting into MOBAs, but I don't know. Like I think it was just the marketing for it because like I said, I had no idea it existed, and at that time in my life, I wasn't quite paying as much attention to game releases as I am now. I'm sure I would have heard of it if it was releasing these days, but that's too bad because I would have loved to try that out, and it looks like we missed the mark by 3 years there, Kirklin.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Quick update here, jumping us back to the tie-in games. So
sure.
It seems like it is like an end game sequence. Because I found a YouTube video of a guy. He has like the full list, and then at the top it's called the Palantir of Sauron, and then the guy goes in, and then it's just like a wave sequence of he was playing as Gandalf, but just so that's probably what Travis was talking about, and he probably said that. And honestly, this is probably something that I probably just never even seen because I never got past that Black Gate level.
Yeah,
just got absolutely murked on that one. But yeah, so there you go. That's the quick update on that one.
Nice. Well, as considering we haven't played Guardians of Middle Earth, I don't think there's much more to add there. But yeah, where do you want to take us next?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go to The Hobbit, 2003. This is the one I was talking about. I think last Sidequest or something when we were talking about we were talking about the Golem game, and this is one where again I never owned this game. This came out on the original Xbox. But I went over to a friend's house. It was like a family friend, so we were just like always over there. This was the same person who this was the first time I played Halo because they got an Xbox for like Christmas, and I was like playing for them. So like they were like the video game friend when I didn't have a console. I just like go over and get exposed to all these things. And yeah, this game, it's so funny because I think at the time I'm like, it's definitely probably not like aged well graphics wise, but in my brain it's just like the best looking game ever. And then when I was looking at screenshots, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is so like original Xbox era. But yeah, man, this game was so fun to me. You just I think you follow the events of The Hobbit. I don't know if I think it's kind of like its own non-canon story though, because you're not really traveling with dwarves or anything like that. Like I don't even remember if Gandalf's in it.
Are you playing as Bilbo?
Yep.
Is he the Hobbit in this? Okay, because it looks like it's a very different Bilbo that I'm used to seeing, which is fair.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I really don't remember the story at all. Like I remember obviously like different things you interact with, but like just I feel like it's a type of game that we see many times where you're just kind of like going through a very linear type of story. It has like a narrative that you're following along, but just like. It was one of those things where you would unlock like different items to like maybe get further in the game. Like I remember you'd get like a walking stick, and then you could and then you could like pole vault with it, and it was like a really big.
That was really cool in the video I was watching. Like that looks like a lot of fun. Like that looks like pretty solid controls, and I don't know, just like a very fast pace in a cool way.
Yeah, 100%, and like I was saying, like in my memory, like it all felt really good. So I obviously haven't revisited this game. It came out in 2003, but like when I was looking into it, like it says it's a prelude to the Lord of the Rings game, and there's actually like Smaug on the cover and Gandalf as well. So it probably does actually follow like the whole story. But like a sequence I remember, like when you get near orcs, like your like sting would actually glow and all that stuff. And I think too, like the art style, it was definitely like a cartoony art style, but it really fit that era of Xbox where it didn't like it felt really polished and next gen at the time. So yeah, and I think it was primarily like a hack and slash again. Like I don't really remember the combat. It was probably really janky and all that stuff, but like for a game that it just kind of lives in my memory vault, like definitely major thumbs up on that one. It was, and like not a lot of people have like really heard about this one. I've brought it up with a few friends and they've never heard of it, but yeah, it was fantastic. I don't even know who the publisher was. Oh, the publisher was Sierra Entertainment.
Yeah, they seem to do a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff too. I don't know if that was before EA when they were in there, or if it was like some sort of partnership. But it seems like they're pretty often in there. But I feel like I remember seeing this game at Blockbuster and stuff like that. And probably the thing like back in the day, I knew that obviously if I saw the word Hobbit, I would relate it to Lord of the Rings, but I didn't know the Hobbit story. So that's probably why I never ended up picking it up or renting it or anything like that. But it looks like totally my jam. It looks like, I'm sure, I don't really know what the level structure is like because I was kind of skipping around a video, but it kind of looked like a 3D platforming collectathon sort of game, like a Banjo, like a Donkey Kong, like a Spyro. Like it definitely had that sort of energy to it. Or at one point he's like jumping up these like platforms, grabbing some gems and stuff like that. So I don't know, that part of it, like with a fun looking character and like the pole vaulting mechanic and different stuff like this with some combat thrown in there. Like that's a good recipe. I'd love to go back and check this game out. I think it would. I don't know if it would. I think because I also think visually it's still kind of held up for me. You were saying it looked a bit iffy, and like yes, it is old, but I thought I feel like it still had a charm to it because it was like a very specific style. It wasn't like trying to be hyper realistic like those movie tie-in games were, and then of course that's not going to age well. But The Hobbit was trying to be a little more. I don't know, cartoony. I feel like so maybe that makes it stand up a little bit better, but I don't know how the gameplay is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I was just like reading this one line. It says like The Hobbit was received with mixed reviews, with critics praising its fidelity to the source material, but finding the gameplay unoriginal and too easy. And it's so fun because like thinking back in 2003, like I was born in '96, so like I was pretty young playing this, and like I was able to navigate through the game, so it was like perfect for that age range, I would say. But like. And like it's rated E for everyone, so it's not like a T for teen even. Like like it's very accessible to youngins like I was at the time, and So yeah, like I think the gameplay was really awesome for me at that age, and that's again like I don't remember all the systems, but I remember just really enjoying like the pole vault when you get your sword and all that stuff. Like it was all really fun, and there was one screenshot even. It has like, a HUD that we've definitely seen many times before, but it actually had like the ring with a bar, which I'm assuming would be like maybe you can like toggle it to go invisible. Like maybe you're using the ring and you can use it for so long. I never got far enough in the game to the point that you actually got the ring, but that's something that I think could, again, like it's fun because it's Bilbo using the ring to like navigate different areas, and that like all that stuff, it's really awesome, and I'm really glad I was able to play it because like I said, like all the memories that I have about it are just 10 out of 10. Like it was just such a fantastic time. So, yeah,
cool. Shoutouts to that game. Let's talk about, this is kind of two games in one, but the Lego games. So these were released a bit later on. Like originally it was Lego Star Wars, and I feel like it was at least a decade later of them making Lego games all the time before they finally got to Lord of the Rings. And then The Hobbit, I want to say was probably coming out in close relation with the Hobbit movies, though I'd have to double check on that. I've only played the Lord of the Rings game, and it's only one game. It's not like the trilogy is split out. It's all as one game. And then The Hobbit is its own one game as well. But yeah, I actually really liked it for a Lego game. I think it was one of the best ones, and not just because I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, but I think the level structure was pretty good. One thing they've been working a lot with in the Lego games over time is getting like these bigger open world or like hub areas. Like they used to be pretty small, but now they're pretty large. And in the Lord of the Rings, I think you kind of need a bump up the scale a little bit, and I think at least for a Lego game, I think they did that pretty well. And obviously being able to play as all the characters, like any character you could possibly think of, is pretty cool. I wonder how many there is. I'm gonna Google that when you're talking next. But that's one thing that's really fun is just able to play as like all these wacky characters. And I think for me, like the one thing that really stood out as being not good about it was, I don't know if the studio was rushed or if it was a budget thing, but the Return of the King is like really bad. Like that part of the game sucks. It's really short. That final battle is like just horrible. Like it is so uninteresting, and I feel like it's like a minute long or something. Like really, really let down. But like Fellowship and Two Towers are great in that. So I definitely recommend people check those ones out because those are still available. You can still get those, and it's obviously got the co-op in there. So yeah, those ones are really fun. I played through those with one of my good friends, and I think he played pretty much Gimli the whole time. I was probably mostly playing Aragorn, maybe a little bit of Legolas, but yeah, I remember we had a lot of fun going through that one.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, I've actually never played this one. I've played many of the Lego games, but never this one. And even just like Lego Lord of the Rings in general, like I never owned like any of the sets. I feel like with the IP Lego sets, it was mostly like Harry Potter and Star Wars. That was kind of like
the Lord of the Rings one didn't come out until we were like well into adulthood, which kind of sucks. 'Cause I would have eaten that shit up if I was younger.
Yeah, I wasn't sure when it came out because I was looking at some of the sets and they have like the Balrog, like Durin's Bane. He looks so badass. They have like oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name now. I think it's Dol Guldur, like the actual tower with the eye on it and everything. Like,
okay.
It looks so badass, and like to assemble those pieces, and even like characters, like they have a Sauron, obviously like Lego character, like all that stuff, man. I wish I had that when I was younger, but for the game in general, like yeah, like when I was looking just in preparation, like looking at different screenshots and stuff, it looks really, really like cute and fun. You know, it's got that Lego video game charm that all those games pretty much have, and I really like those Lego like video games, whether it's I really like the Harry Potter one. I'm not fully done that one, but Star Wars was definitely like my main cup of tea in with that one. But yeah, I'll maybe nice Steam sale or something, or preferably maybe on consoles.
I think they're already $20 like just by default, so they're pretty cheap these days. And it looks like 74 playable characters in there, so that's pretty awesome. I don't even know. I could not even name that many characters in Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Maybe if you threw Hobbit in there, maybe I could get to 74, but that would be. We should do it at some point. That'd be a fun like trivia thing. Like how many characters can you name? We won't do that right now, but that'd be a fun one to do.
That's awesome. And like just thinking about, in my opinion, what makes those Lego games so fun is like the free play aspect when you go in through a level and you're playing as whoever, right? And maybe you're doing did they have like custom characters in that one as well?
I don't remember that, but I think truthfully, this is one of the Lego games that I played through it from start to finish, and then like didn't really continue past that. So like for example, the free play mode, I've actually never really done that in this game. I really should now because I still have my save game, obviously. So now I could go through the game again and have the free play access. I don't remember if there was custom characters though.
Okay. But like even without that, like just being able to go through the levels like Sauron or the Witch King, like something like that, like I think that's so fun because one of my favorite things about Lord of the Rings, there's a lot of things I love about Lord of the Rings, but also just like the characters and the different characters that make them just really unique and different from the other ones. So yeah, I'll definitely have to add that to my wish list and keep an eye on that one.
I'm scrolling through the list of characters. I don't see if there's anything weird in here. And you can play as Rosie. That's kind of fun. Like that's wild. I'm sure that's the only game where you can play as Rosie. You can play. There's the Easterlings in there. Radagast is in there. There might be actually more Hobbit characters than I remember. Wormtongue, of course, you got to be able to play as him.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
What would he do? Like he never really has a weapon.
I don't know what he does.
He must have like a little dagger, stab people.
If I click on him, what can I see here? There's not really too much that it's showing me, but that's pretty cool. Yeah. Who else? With some good DLC characters. I actually don't know many of these. But.
Like in with regards.
A mini Balrog. Okay, that's cool. I never unlocked that.
Like if you have a character like Aragorn, obviously he's using a sword to attack, and then like would Gandalf like be using spells or like mostly like just still slapping people with his sword and staff, I guess, or like did he have powers?
Yeah, I mean it's been a while. I feel like Gandalf was probably similar to what the Jedis are like in the Lego games. I feel like he could like pick stuff up and move stuff around maybe. But I remember like the elves can like jump extra high so they can get places. And there's characters like the dwarves or the hobbits, they can like crawl through small small little things. Like that kind of classic. I feel like it still had that classic Lego structure. They've really changed things up in recent years, especially the Skywalker Saga game that came out this year, where I feel like they just completely changed what the gameplay is like, but this game was definitely still that very classic style of like each character has some quirk to them that lets them do stuff, and I'm sure Frodo could go invisible, and I think it had all that good stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
And then like I said, the Hobbit game I haven't The Lego Hobbit game I haven't played. I should probably pick it up because one day it will just get taken off Steam and you'll never be able to get it again. It's $20 now. Maybe I'll just put it on my wish list. When it goes on sale next, I'll pick that up. But I would actually like to play through that. I think that would be a fun way to do it. I don't know. I wonder how long it would be. I wonder if they really stretched that one out. Because I feel like since it was a movie tie-in, I feel like I could see them doing some of the stuff that the live-action trilogy did. Like I could see them adding some of those additional characters and areas that aren't actually from the book or the original animated movie, stuff like that. How about we take another ad break here and we'll come back and get into some more Lord of the Rings goodness. We are back. Kirklin, where do you want to go next on our list?
All right, let's check the list here. Let's go Lord of the Rings Conquest here. This is one
it's a classic.
It's so I'm like torn on this one because this game is so fantastic. It's from the same people that did the Star Wars Battlefront game way back in the day, and I played the shit out of that game. Like that would be one that I would put on, and I would just play like single player, but like just put like so many different maps on. So like once I finished this game, it would just automatically go to the next map. And like I think the systems were pretty much identical from the Star Wars game to the Lord of the Rings game. And like I feel like if I had this Lord of the Rings game at the time, like I probably would have been playing this more than the Star Wars one because I love Lord of the Rings so much. I mean, I love Star Wars too, but I just feel like in tandem, like those two games would have just been my rotation like constantly. I didn't even play this game until on a gauntlet, like one random day, and I'm like, wait, what? This is from the same people that did Battlefront? Like, oh my gosh, I wish I had this back in the day because I would have just milked so many more hours out of it and probably enjoyed it more than, like, I still had fun playing it, definitely. Especially, like, me and Saris had, like, a notorious, like, two-man, like, win against, I think it was against you? Or was
I remember playing... I remember playing against Ruben in a one-on-one. That's what my memory is. I don't know if I ever actually played a duos match in that.
Okay, so then it was definitely against Travis and Taylor, and it was one of those things where we just had like an insane comeback. Saris was just MVP because he was just playing, I think he was like Saruman, and just like absolutely decimating them with like the ranged attacks. Like he had that system down, and he was just abusing it. But I mean, for the audio listeners, if you don't know what this game is, like you pick your kind of like class, I guess. Like there's like a rogue, there's like your classic warrior type dude, and then like just like that. And then once you accumulate enough score, you get the opportunity to like take over as a hero, which that's where you would pick like Saruman. And then of course in the Star Wars games, you would pick like a Jedi or something like that, maybe Boba Fett. And yeah, like I said, like this is one where if I discovered this as a youngin, I would have played this just constantly, like all day, every day, whether I'm just jumping in as the rogue character and just taking out bots or whatnot. Just really had a lot of fun with it. So unfortunately, I didn't discover it till later in life, and I did enjoy it, but I don't think I would have. I definitely would have enjoyed it. I definitely would have enjoyed it so much more if I discovered it like a long time ago. But again, what can you do now? But still, it's such a fantastic concept. Like you're not going through the story. Maybe there was a campaign. I'm not too sure.
There probably was. I would think.
Yeah, but like just such a great concept though. You just go in there and you're not playing as Aragorn. Maybe you unlock him as the hero, but like you're just as like a soldier and you're just going to war, and then like the big bads come on the field, and it's mostly like a point capture thing. That's how you like win. Whoever has like the most. It might be like I don't remember if it's a.
Well, I think there's like different game modes, system. Right?
Yeah, you're definitely
like there is like the King of the Hills style, but then there also probably is just deathmatch. But yeah, I remember from that match I had against Ruben that I feel like one of the problems that I had with like a 1v1 setting, which is definitely not how the game was, intentionally designed, was that it was just like his like minions or whatever were just crushing mine. And it wasn't even that I was like down in like capturing points or whatever it was. I might have been down a kill or two, but like his minions were just crushing mine. And it's like, well, there's not really any way I can win this at this point. And I remember like having to just try and do some crazy plays to get him, and he won fair and square. But it was a bit janky. But I also remember playing this game back in the day because my next door neighbor had it, and we'd play a lot of this game. And yeah, like just that structure too of just playing this kind of like lots of NPCs, this kind of really setting up like a war, like a full on battle, and then having people like play as these hero characters. I feel like that setup of multiplayer has not really been done a whole lot. Like normally you just are playing as the equivalent of a hero character.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like a unique structure, and I know they kind of Star Wars Battlefront had sort of done it first anyway. But yeah, I feel like Conquest. I feel like there's actually still a place for Conquest, so maybe we'll talk about that a bit later and what we'd like to see in the future. But yeah, definitely have a soft spot in my heart for Conquest, and that's one I'd actually like to pick up and play again. Our next 24-hour stream, we should whip it out again. I'd love to just hop in there and try it out again when we're not necessarily in a competitive, gauntlet format, but just to mess around and play, just get in that world and check out some of those characters.
Absolutely, I agree.
Anything else on Conquest, or should we move along?
No, we can move along.
Okay, so where do I want to go next? I guess, now's probably a good time to talk about the 2 Middle-earth games. There was Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor and then Middle-earth Shadow of War, which I always forget the names of these 2 games, and I always forget which one is first and which one's second. So, first of all, I feel like naming scheme could have done better.
Shadow of Mordor is the first one. There's Shadow of Mordor and then Shadow of War. And the way I think of it, I'm like, well, Shadow of War is just on such a bigger scale,
Sure.
Shadow of Mordor is just constricted to this Mordor area.
Yeah.
Because I think you're mostly in Mordor. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but
Go ahead.
I think you might venture out of Mordor for the second one. I haven't played it yet.
Okay.
I own it. It was a PlayStation Plus free game.
Right.
But with Shadow of Mordor, I played the absolute shit of it. I got it like right when it released. I think I platinumed it too on like PS4,
Nice.
and then I actually like returned it. I remember very specifically because I just beat it like instantly, and then it's like, well, I don't think I am gonna revisit this. And then sure enough, it's like, fuck, I wish I still had it. I want to revisit this game and just slay
probably pretty cheap
Orkai
now.
constantly. And then, I picked it up on Steam summer sale with like all the DLC that I wasn't able to play beforehand, so I get like nice, really cheap. And it was cool too because with the DLC, you could actually like reskin your character. So
nice.
if you're playing as I think Talion or something like that was his
Yeah,
name,
that sounds familiar.
and then you could just play as like the elf the elf that you like would go into like the shadow form with,
Oh,
but you
right.
could play him like as like a non-dead elf, which was really cool. There was like a female that you could reskin as, so there was a couple of really cool things that actually I think enjoy boosted the replayability of it, because now I could play through the game as another character. All like the cutscenes, it's like his voice and everything, so it's kind of funny if you're like a different character. But still, like it. Fantastic DLCs on that game, but for the game like overall, of course, like I can't really speak too much about Shadow of War. I think the main thing that they added to that one is just like the large scale battles. Like you could actually maybe like, did you play Shadow of War?
I only played Shadow of Mordor, and I only really played it for maybe 4, 5, 6 hours, somewhere in there.
Okay.
It didn't hit me the same way it did other people. I mean, I love that Nemesis system. Obviously, that's been talked about a lot in video games over the years. Everyone wants a Nemesis system in like every game now because it was a really cool system that they've copyrighted for some reason, which is the most annoying thing ever. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it was just like the minute-to-minute gameplay wasn't really doing it for me, and I don't think there's I can't like critique it. I don't think that there is anything wrong with it. It's just very hack and slashy in a way, and I'm sure there's more depth to it, but for me it just like did not hook me. And then I guess I also felt like the story and the lack of like maybe recognizable characters was a thing for me, which is something that I wish I didn't have to say that, because I'd like to think that, okay, put me in that world, give me some new characters. I'm down to like experience some new stories that the developers can truly have some freedom with, rather than being, tied down by, okay, if you have Aragorn as a playable character, then what's the story, reason for that? Well, then you're going to set it similar to the movies and all this stuff that we've already seen before. So, yeah, I don't know. I shouldn't say that, but that was, I feel like, something that kept me from coming back, because I just wasn't really gripped by the story or the gameplay. It was really just that Nemesis system that was like the coolest thing about the game for me. So, at some point in my life, I'd like to go back and play it, and maybe now when we're so inundated with Lord of the Rings stuff and the show coming out, maybe now's the time to do so. But yeah, I don't know. It just never hooked me in the same way that it seemed to do for most other people, and therefore I never checked out Shadow of War. But I think I might be in the same boat as you, where I might have it through PS Plus, so I might have access to it when even if I just want to check it out for an afternoon and say I played it a little bit, just get the vibe for it, I think I might have access to it through that right now.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I don't think you liked like the Arkham type games as well, like at least for the gameplay, right? If I
I surprisingly
like
actually really liked
it.
it. It is. I surprisingly I like the first Arkham Arkham Asylum, I think was the first one, right?
Yeah.
I actually really like that game, but I like it more for its level structure and world design.
Right.
The combat's fine; I can get through it, but like the boss fights, I could care less for.
Yeah.
But yeah, but then by the time I got to the second Arkham game, I was like so out of it. I'm like, I do not care about this combat at all. It's like the same reason why I've like not dipped into The Witcher 3 much, because I just like, wow, this combat sucks. I hate this so much. So I don't know. I really need to push myself past that and find a way to enjoy that kind of combat style, because there's a lot of great games hiding behind it. But yeah, it's something that kind of turns me off right away, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. I feel like you either you like it or you don't, and I'm definitely in the like it camp. Like for me, I completely understand where you're coming from, because it is very basic. Like it's just you hit circle when you see the symbol, and then you block, and then you counter. Like like it's very basic in that sense. Of course, there's some things that make oh no, I can't block this guy. I have to tackle him differently. But other than that, like it's mostly just that. And it really worked for me, because I think like the visuals were fantastic in that game. Like all the Urukai looked so good. Especially like I think it. Yeah, because I had it on PS4 originally, and then now I own it on Steam, and like just maybe I'm just closer to my screen, and like everything's just running better, but it just looks so good, especially if it's like a rainy section, and I just have like hundreds of Urukai just surrounding me.
Yeah,
I'm just like I'm taking them down. I feel like I'm in Helm's Deep, and it's just so epic. The score is so fantastic. Like the music is just lifting it, and yeah, I completely agree. Like the Nemesis system just completely blew me away. I remember when they first showcased that. I don't know if it was like at like an E3 or something, but that was very, very cool to me. How because yeah, like you kill this guy, you think he's done, and then all of a sudden you're fighting off other people, and this dude like shows up, and he's just got like stitches on his neck, implying that he like just sewed his head back on.
Yeah,
like, I remember you, and it's just like
it's great.
It made the game just really feel alive, and like not just I killed.
It personalizes the experience too to each player.
Yeah, 100%. And like there was some where maybe again, like I was talking about, like I can just parry everyone. Maybe this guy is super strong against that, and he can just like one shot you if he does that. I'm like terrified of that guy, so I'm like fighting, and then all of a sudden this guy shows up. He's like, "Back again, are you?" Because he just murdered me, and then I just like run for the hills, because like, oh no, not Uglug the merciful or whatever the hell his name would be, right? And like they all had like
he doesn't sound very merciful to me.
No, that's the irony of his name.
Yeah, sure.
It was cool because they had like unique names like that. Like you would never. Maybe they would have like the first name. Like there's probably only so many that they have in the system, so maybe you'll come across like 2 of them. But yeah, like that was really fantastic, and I think it's another thing where it was just the most modern like Lord of the Rings game at the time, and it felt so cool to just be in that world. Like it really just felt like Lord of the Rings. And again, like I don't know why I haven't jumped into Shadow War yet, because that one just boosts all the systems that were introduced in the first game, and just so much more. You actually see like Barad-dûr like with the eye and stuff. Like I think you're closer to those more iconic areas.
Okay.
You can actually like fly those hell beasts or the fell beasts, whatever they're called, or like the Nazgul, like the flying.
Oh right, those
ones.
dragon things.
Yeah, because in the first game you could take over. You could possess like the wargs, which are like the wolf type things. But in that one, you could actually do like the flying beast, which again,
that's
like
cool.
It's just taking everything and just boosting it up. And like you could like brand like a general or something, so that when you go to fight, like he would be on your side. But then on the new one, you could just like have like a full army, and it would be a full large scale like this army against this army, and they just go to war, and it's just epic. From what I've seen my buddy play it, and I got to get in there. I think like the biggest downside of those games is the story isn't the strongest, and they do non-canon stuff, and I don't have a problem with people doing non-canon stuff. It's just like by the end of the first game, spoiler alert, like you have like a fight with Sauron, and it's like a quick time event. Like it's so anticlimactic. Like you don't actually fight him. It's like you hit X at the right time, and then you like you like dodge. Like it's just like for a game that like, you know, the gameplay, it's not the most thought out, but like that is the whole game. Like you're actually killing these people. But then when you get to the last boss, it's just this really weird like quick time event, and it's just very lackluster ending in my opinion. And I think like the non-canon story that they're telling was interesting, because you're kind of unraveling the secrets of Celebrimbor, which is the elf that's kind of like possessing you. But it's very different from the version that I know of, but it is still kind of interesting. But yeah, I think that's a little bit lackluster there, because yeah, but but like, yeah, for me, like I just love the feel of jumping in this world, and it really feels like Lord of the Rings. Like I think the Uruk-hai, they look so
So
good.
is this your favorite Lord of the Rings game? Would you say?
Um, it's like it's tough to say because like recency bias. Like it's the latest one I have played, so I think it like if I played shit like Battle for Middle Earth like last week, maybe I'm like, okay, this game is very dated compared to it. But like in my mind, I'm like that was just like a perfect RTS Lord of the Rings game.
Right.
So yeah, I would probably say that, and that's what makes it so unfortunate that I haven't played like the newest one yet because I know it just boosts all those other things that were fantastic in the game.
Well,
So,
I mean,
yeah,
I'm a strong believer of the idea that sometimes a game is so good that you don't need to play a sequel. You don't need any more. Like that first one's that's me with Borderlands. That's you and Briggs with Dishonored. Like it happens sometimes, and I totally understand that sentiment. So I don't blame you there. Would you say it's safe to say that you're pretty excited that this studio now is working on a Wonder Woman game? And
yes.
I'm sure it will maybe incorporate that Nemesis system as well in their own like superhero villain kind of way, which could be pretty neat.
Yeah, 100%. No, I'm very much looking forward to that. And for me, like I love the combat. I remember playing. I don't know if I played Shadow of Mordor or Batman first, but I remember like going from that one to the other one and being like, oh my god, the gameplay's the same, like, and then realizing it's both from Warner Brothers, so it's like, okay, that makes sense that it's like the same type of combat. So I'm expecting more of that. Hopefully they make it a little bit more like complicated, or not complicated, complex is a better word, so it's easy to pull, or you know what I'm trying to say. Like it's a little bit more dynamic than just like a very basic combat system. But I think what makes that combat system really special, for me at least, is it just feels very cinematic. It feels very epic. Like I don't have to, it's not like Dark Souls where I have to do everything perfect to make it like it still kind of looks janky when I do it properly. But in this game, like I can just like, luckily there's like an icon that goes over the head. Maybe if you're playing on like harder difficulties, the icons are hidden. But like still, like you're getting that parry, it slows down time. You do an execute, chops off their head, and you just see the other people like react and everything. Like I feel like also nowadays that I consider myself more of a casual gamer, so I'm not like, oh, I gotta beat it on like the hardest difficulty just to like challenge myself. Like I'm in it just for the experience. That stuff I absolutely love, and I really hope that gets incorporated into Wonder Woman. Because I'm
sure it will. I'm sure they'll take the best stuff and the good stuff from Wonder Woman as well. What game do you want to jump to next?
Right on. Let's quickly talk about Lord of the Rings Online.
Okay.
Did you ever play this one?
I have not, but I've heard some like really good things. Another podcast that I listen to, this one guy's like just been playing it every week. Like that's games we've been playing section. He's always talking about Lord of the Rings Online. That's awesome. I don't know. I was watching some videos. I'm like, this has like Fable energy to it in like the best way possible. Like it looks a lot of fun, and it's definitely a bit dated. But I could see myself like jumping in there just to cruise around for a bit and live in Middle Earth. This might be the best game for that in a way. Yeah. So yeah, it looks pretty cool, but I have not played it myself.
Yeah, man. I think in like middle school for some, like I think I found out like what it was. Pardon me, and like realized it was free. That was my favorite type of game back in the day, especially when I wasn't working. Couldn't afford games. The free games were the best. And I've only made one character. I was a Hobbit, and it was the equivalent to like a bard, like that type of role.
Okay.
Just like kind of boost my party. I didn't have like friends to play with, so that kind of diminishes the experience, I feel, because MMOs are like kind of all about that I don't know. I'm really not like an MMO player, and I think that was like the downside to it, where the combat just really wasn't fun for me, because it's just like you click on this enemy and then he just does his rotation and then eventually you kill him. Like it kind of took me out of it. But just like exploring the Shire, like that was so fun for me. I didn't play it enough to like really venture out and like level up my character a lot, but just being in Lord of the Rings, that was really cool. And I think my favorite thing about it was like the potential of what it could be is just like if you actually have like a group of like 10 friends and you all have like your different races, like going in there and like taking out these.
That'd be cool.
I'm assuming there's like a Belrog, like raid boss or something like that. Like you can only imagine the extent of Lord of the Rings MMO could do. But unfortunately, MMOs just aren't my genre, so I wasn't really able to get a lot of enjoyment out of it. But yeah, like there's other Lord of the Ring content creators that I follow, and they go in there all the time, and like they'll do special streams and they'll just kind of like go around to different areas and just like comment on like the accuracy of like, okay, this building is here, and it actually makes sense, and like that's more the thing that I love about it, but that's not really the MMO selling point for that stuff. Like it's not like a touring Middle Earth game, you know. It's leveling up your character and doing dungeons and raids and stuff like that. But so yeah, like I'm glad I tried it out. Unfortunately, it's not my genre, so I wasn't able to get a lot out of it. But it's cool that it's a thing and it's still actually popping off. Like it's still supported. I don't think the numbers are comparable to anything like WoW or like some other MMOs like that, but it's cool that it's still around, which means that there must be like still a current player base that are really enjoying it. So that's cool.
It'd be fun for like a GeekVerse stream for all of us to hop in there for an afternoon, and just like all make our characters meet up and just I don't know, just fuck around for a couple hours and just have some fun living in that world.
I agree. It's free, so it's pretty easy for us to get in there. So we should do
it. Speaking of that, very random tangent, but I don't know if you saw, but Skyrim has like an actually pretty good co-op mod that was recently added. So we should, without going too in depth on that, me, you, and Taylor should do a Sunday stream again and play that because that'd be a lot of fun.
I like it. Yes.
Okay, the next game I want to jump us to is another one that I haven't played, Lord of the Rings: The Third Age. This was a 2004 game, very much like. Tied to the movies, although I don't think it's necessarily retelling that story. I think it just might be in that setting with those characters. I'm not actually sure. Like I said, I've not played it, but I wanted to show this one out for a couple reasons. Well, I guess first I should ask, have you played this game?
No, I had never heard of it until you put it on the list, so I was doing some digging there.
Yeah, so there's a couple different versions to this one. So one is the console versions, which I think was PS2, GameCube. I think that's the era we're talking about here. And this is interesting because it's like a very much like a Final Fantasy turn-based sort of system to it, which is really cool because looking through all the other Lord of the Rings games, doesn't seem like that's very common in terms of just like a turn-based, selecting your maybe attack or your potion or your buff up move, whatever it is. Like that part of it seems interesting. I'd like to just see like if the mechanics are good. I'd actually like to try that out. It sounds kind of fun. But then the other part of this is that the Game Boy Advance version, this was a weird thing too back in the day. All these licensed games would have the same name, but the Game Boy Advance version and the console version would be just completely different games. Like not a single thing in common. And so the Game Boy Advance version is just like a Fire Emblem style like grid-based tactics game. And so it's like funny. Shit, like that was one of the things I was going to say in like the future of Lord of the Rings games. What would I like to see? I was like, I want to see that, but it's like, okay, it's already been done. If you go back, the video is like, okay, it doesn't look the best. And honestly, even from that perspective of I've played 100 of those grid-based games in my life, this one doesn't look the cleanest. I think it's hard because there's not much information on the screen at any given time. Like you really have to scroll around a lot to get a feel for the battlefield. So I feel like that might not play the best. But I saw this. It's at my local game store, like the cartridge. I'm gonna go pick this up. It's like $10. So I'll report back on that one because I want to go. I just want to see what the hell that's about because it seems super interesting to me. But I was watching this one YouTube video where the levels like fighting. I think a golem. I don't know if it's in the Mines of Moria. It's one of those kinds of golems, or sorry, not golems, like trolls. And yeah, it's just interesting because like the positioning of everyone seemed really important. You're gonna have your maybe tanky characters up front going in to take the damage, and then the characters in the back either casting spells or shooting arrows, whatever it is. So yeah, this is one that it is in that licensed game era, but I really want to go back and check out the Third Age because both the console and the GBA version look like pretty interesting games in terms of being a different genre for Lord of the Rings, but also just like the setting and maybe not being as closely tied to the movie storyline. So they perhaps had a little bit more freedom there in terms of what they want to do, but you still get those familiar characters. So it seems like a good mix of stuff, and even though it's a bit dated, definitely one I want to go check out.
Yeah, it looks really interesting. I've never really been like the biggest fan of like that type of gameplay. I feel like that was like one of the biggest limiters for getting through like Chrono Trigger. It was just like it's like the gameplay. Like I could definitely appreciate it, and like it's awesome that it's a thing. Like
but Chrono Triggers with the time system is so cool. You got to play.
I know I got to break through it. Like because there's been. Like I think it was definitely one of the Final Fantasies that I played like back on PS1. I think that was like the most of that type of genre game I played. I think it was just one of those things where I just didn't have access to any other games. So it's like let's just play this one, even if I don't love the system. But yeah, like this looks really interesting. It looks like it has some characters that are like kind of side characters in the movies, but like they have more relevant roles. Like Morwen is one of them. I completely forgot about that character. Do you know who that is? Morrowind?
I thought you were talking about Morrowind for a second. I don't know who Morrowind is. Morrowind,
She
Lord of the Rings.
I don't even want to explain it because it's so niche, but it's like, do you remember in Two Towers? There's like those two kids that get put on a horse.
Wait, is she in Rings of Power? Because that's what's coming up on Google Images when I see
I don't think
this.
so. I don't think so.
Huh.
No, like, from the image that I found, she's the character who she like has her two kids and she puts them on the horse and she's like telling them to prepare.
Oh my
because,
God,
like, the
that's
orcs are
so
coming.
random.
It's so
Yeah.
random, yeah. And then she's like a badass like axe wielding character in this. And it's just like that's kind of fun.
That's
I don't know,
awesome.
like, yeah, so that looks interesting to me. Just the character design and stuff, obviously it's dated, but it totally reminds me of that era of video games because I feel like that was just like the best they could do. So all like the best games kind of had like that that character design. But yeah, like it's interesting because it's kind of close to the type of game as you were hinting at, like I was gonna maybe bring up on the future games I would like to see. But the more I learn about these Lord of the Rings games I never even knew about, it's like, oh my God, they actually already covered that base.
Yeah. Somewhat. They sort of
Somewhat.
covered it. The most lightly way possible.
The Game Boy Advance version. That's so funny that you said there's like.
I do love the
two
GBA
games.
though, so that's my favorite handheld ever. So I definitely will.
Ever. Wow.
It is. I love Game Boy Advance. I mean, Sacred Stones is one of my favorite games of all time, but it is an amazing console. I love the aesthetic of that era too. Like with the limitations that the GBA had, is like some of my favorite visuals in any game, just in terms of like generally the style that was there, but also just like what they could do. So I promise you, when I'm back home and I have a free day, I'm gonna go to the game store. I'm gonna go pick this one up, and I'll report back. I'll try and save it for a week when you're on Sidequest, and I'll tell you what I think. But yeah, what do you want to talk about next? I think maybe the top one on the list might be a good one to go to next, but I'll let you decide.
Top one on the list. Is it?
That's bolded. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, Lord of the Rings: Battle for Middle Earth. There you go. This was one, and this is another instance that I didn't even own this game, but my cousin had it on Xbox. I don't know if it was the first one or the second one, but my like original genre was RTS, and I love Lord of the Rings. And when I discovered this, like I could not believe that this was a thing. It was two things I absolutely loved, and like I don't even remember all like the gameplay elements of it, like if it was, I don't know, more fast-paced like StarCraft or more of a slower-paced RTS. Like, I don't remember those specifics, but I just remember getting in, and I was blown away that there was like two campaigns. There was a good campaign and an evil campaign.
Yeah.
I feel like at that time, like Fable was the first game that I was like, you can play as a bad guy. Like, what? Like, what? Like, that blew my mind. And like all the different creatures, like whether it's like your little workers, like there'd just be like little ghoul type things, like just orcs. Like, that was so fascinating to me. And you could have like special abilities. I think you could like summon a Balrog if you're the bad guys, like as one of them. It's
nice. That's cool.
So cool, man. And yeah, like I played that as much as I could while I was at my cousin's house. Like, it's unfortunate I wasn't able to take it home. It was just such a great concept. And again, like talking about the accessibility, like I'm so upset that I can't just like get this game. Like, I don't care if I had to pay $80, I would probably drop that for this game because I just really want to experience it. Because yeah, like as I said, like I don't know, like the gameplay mechanics might be janky, but it was just so cool that there was. You can't like, it's not only you can play as the good factions or the bad factions. I think you can like specifically play like if you're doing like just a custom game, like you could probably play as like the elves or the men or like a more specific like subgenre of not just good or evil. But there was actually like a good and evil campaign, and you follow those stories, and it was just so cool to me that they allowed you to do that. And it's so
is the good campaign like the story of the Fellowship and all that, or?
I don't think so, because I think it's kind of like a different.
I guess that wouldn't really make sense for
period.
like necessarily having a bunch of war like battles in terms of scale, right?
Yeah, like, and again, like it's been so long since I've actually like experienced like played the game, because I don't remember that specifically, but I think it's like a different time period than what happens in the events of the Fellowship and like Frodo and that stuff,
right?
So yeah. But for the gameplay wise, it was so fun, and like I played it on Xbox 360, I believe. So they did a good job from what I remember of like it actually being enjoyable on a handheld, like it or a handheld with a gamepad in your hand.
Yeah.
It's RTS has kind of been always a thing where I just assume that it was like it's meant for PC, just mouse and keyboard. Like it seems in my mind to work so much better. But I like Halo Wars. I guess that was another one that came out on Xbox, and it worked, well enough. Like you probably just hold like at left trigger to do like a click and drag thing, I would assume.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's one of those where unfortunately it's been so long since I played it, so I can't speak to a full extent, but it's same thing with like the Hobbit that I was talking about earlier. Like my nostalgia rating is 10 out of 10. Like in my mind as like the little Kirklin that played it back in the day, it is a perfect game. It is so fantastic. And then when I hear like Travis's similar praise and review for it, it's like, okay, I wasn't just warped as like a little kid's mind. Like it actually was a really solid game. And it's just baffling to me that they have like you're mentioning like the licensing thing, so I guess that's a little bit easier to understand. But like I just, because everyone that I talk to just has like high praise for this game, it's just like, how have they not like done this again? So
yeah, I'd like
maybe in the future.
I'd love to see a new one. This is to me like maybe the biggest miss on my list is like, oh, I really wish I had played this game back in the day. And yeah, since it's on console, I'm sure I can find a disc for it out there at a used game store. So maybe I'll put that one on my list too and see if I can find that for a good price, because I'd like to check that out, because that's definitely a genre that just fits so perfectly for it. But yeah, unfortunately I don't have much to add because I've never played it myself. But any points on that one before we move on?
I mean, let's just get like a Kickstarter going to get this game remade. Oh, I want it so bad.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some games then that are not Lord of the Rings games, but are games that feature Lord of the Rings stuff in them. So first, we'll bring this one up because it's pretty modern, but Multiverses, which is going into open beta or open alpha. Shit, I don't even know where it's at. Open alpha, I can't remember. July, this month, we're going into open something or other, so everyone can play. You don't need to get a code anymore. That might be the day that this podcast is live on the feed, so it might be up there already. Gandalf has been a heavily leaked character. We've seen like a picture of him that looks pretty legit. I don't think it's officially been announced, but it does make sense because they obviously have that IP. So Gandalf seems like he's going to be there. I think me and you have both talked about that on the podcast. That's pretty exciting. But I want to ask you, like, let's say Multiverses is a huge success and it's around for 10 years. It's a huge game. Gets content for years and years to come. If you were to get 3 more Lord of the Rings characters, who would you pick? Who would you really want to see in that platform fighter world? Gandalf included. Like, who are the 3 more that you want to see?
I was like totally memeing in the early days of like, give me Denethor, and he's like throwing tomatoes and stuff. Because Shaggy had like a sandwich that he throws. I'm like, that would that's my meme pick. Denethor, the Stone of Gondor. Like obviously I want to see a Hobbit in there. I think the easy one to take would be Frodo, or maybe even Bilbo, because he's like the original Hobbit.
I'd love to see really Bilbo,
fun. And then like I think Bilbo's a lot more known to actually like be able to use the ring without it just sucking him, and then like seeing the Eye of Sauron and really fucking with his psyche. Like that was just a different era, even like when he had the ring. So I think that could fit gameplay wise. Like maybe he can dodge or something when he puts on the ring. I don't know what it would entail, but something like that could be really fun. And I think like in my mind, I was just trying to not just have like all Fellowship members or like just all Hobbits members, like try and like really like, just think of just very diverse range for my 3. So it'd probably be like Bilbo as a good character. I need to get my Witch King of Angmar.
I was thinking him too. Yeah,
he's just he's so iconic with his like mace thing that he has, or flail, I think it is. Like he's just really, really badass character, and his helm is really iconic, and that could just be a really badass one. I can only imagine like a really cool aspect of Multiverses is like the dialogue that the characters will have to each other. Like they'll just kind of shit talk each other, and then like just the Witch King, just like taunting people. I think that's so fun.
That makes I'm very excited to see how Gandalf shit talks people, because he has some like pretty clever burns, I'll say, where he's never really like on the nose about it. Like he's not calling you a dipshit, but he's calling you a dipshit in another way. I'm very excited to see how he does that in that game.
Absolutely. Fool of a took.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we've seen it so much throughout the live action movies, even like he's just, and even in the books too, like he's always just kind of that grumpy old man at moments. So yeah, I got the Witch King of Angmar, Bilbo Baggins, and we got some pretty tall people with Iron Giant. Maybe a Treebeard
Oh,
appearing. That
yeah,
could be
that'd
really
be cool.
fun, like he might be similar to Groot, but like I think they can make them. I'm not saying Groot's in the game, but like I think they can really separate to enough where it's not just like, oh, the tree character is like a tree character. Like,
Yeah.
no, that's Treebeard. So I think that could be really fun. Again, like I could just think of so many different characters that could fit in this game. I hope this game has one like. In like a year, I hope the roster is just like absolutely insane because Warner Brothers has so many, or they have access to so many characters. So I really hope they abuse that.
Yeah, I mean it's set up for success. Where I mean, me and you have both played it. It's like it's a good game. Like it is very solid. It's carving out a special niche too within the platform fighter genre. Like they've got a lot of great IP they can dig into to get people back in. I think this is one I definitely see myself supporting, even financially, buying some skins, buying some cool stuff in there, especially the Lord of the Rings content. I'll definitely be supporting that because I really hope this game lives on for many years. I'd love to get some more characters. And I should also mention this, that S-Bubs in our community, he's a huge multiverses head is what you could call him, I guess. I think he even has a Discord just all about multiverses leaks and all this stuff. And from what I've heard from him, it seems like Legolas is maybe the next in line in terms of just like he's in the game files a lot. Maybe there's voice lines that are referencing him. So it seems like Legolas might be the next one after Gandalf. Assuming the game is successful and is getting content updates for a while, which I'm cool with. I think Legolas, like a more ranged, focused character, but of course he does have close combat things, could be cool, and also just like him jumping around like crazy fits just because he is so acrobatic and such in the movies and whatnot. I think my three, I really want to see Gimli. I can just picture Gimli. I can picture Gimli doing like a front flip, like axe swing. Like he could have like the range attack with his smaller axes. He's got all sorts of different axes. I could see like one of his special moves being like drinking beer or something and getting like a bit drunk, or maybe you lose a bit of control, but he can like tank more damage, something like that. Like I could picture that being really cool. I'd totally picture him like shit talking the other characters that's in there.
Especially if Legolas is in there, right? Like that would fit.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah, they're against each other, counting who's got more wins, that kind of thing. So I'll definitely take Gimli. I really want to see that. I think I'm gonna go Witch King Angmar too. I really want to see an evil character, and that one makes the most sense. I think the weapons are really cool. You could also like incorporate some of the Nazgul stuff in there, like maybe one of those dragon. What are those dragon things called? You said
the Fell Beast.
The Fell Beast. So maybe like one of those could be incorporated for a special, like maybe the up B, like the recovery move or something like that. Is like you hop on one of those very quickly. That could be pretty neat.
Do it, Warner Brothers, or whoever like the maker of the game is. Slipped my mind.
And then I really do feel like a Hobbit would be a good fit. I think Sam could be fun as well. But I also I don't know. I think Frodo or Bilbo, of course, would make the most sense. I think like an Ice Climbers sort of thing with Merry and Pippin could be cool, where you kind of got a duo there, or similar to Zelda and Sheik, like a Smeagol Gollum thing. I mean, maybe I don't know if you really want like the Hobbit version of Smeagol. Maybe you do if you don't have any other Hobbits, then you could do some more traditional Hobbit stuff. But I think Gollum could actually be a pretty interesting moveset, like throwing fish around and like biting people, jumping on them, grabbing them. But I think maybe I'll pick officially. It's a boring pick. I'm gonna pick Aragorn. I love Aragorn. Like he fit like Arya Stark's in Multiverse, and she plays really cool. Just that basic sword fighter kind of moveset. I'd love to see another one. Like I just picture him. I could see someone like taking Aragorn, the look of Aragorn, overlaying it over Marth in Smash, and it just working perfectly. In terms of like that fighting style, he could have like the torch in there as a bonus move. He does use a bow often, so you can get like some range moves in there. So I think that would fit really well. I'd love to see my man Aragorn in there, as you know, it's not the most exciting pick, but I think he's like my favorite Lord of the Rings character. He's just awesome. So I think those would be my three, and I hope even if we just get Gandalf, that's cool, but I hope to see a lot more, and hopefully like Helm's Deep or some other cool maps. Like I really hope the Lord of the Rings representation is in there. Considering it's not in there at launch is a bit sad, and maybe not like the best sign for how much they're going to use those characters, but I really hope they go deep on that IP at some point.
100%. I feel like another one that it could make sense to do, at least like on paper or like at the top of my head, is like Sauron, because he's just like the main big bad, and we do see him like with a mace, and I could picture him being kind of like Ganondorf, where he's just like really slow but just hits so hard. But I like I personally just want to see Witch King because I feel like he's just underutilized in Lord of the Rings in general, and different video games. But that Uppy, that just like completely like sold me. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
that, like it just makes sense, you know? Like he just recovers on the Fell Beast. That would be so badass. And
It'd
like
be so
again,
cool.
his trash talk, like no man can kill me, like that.
Yeah.
Like it's written right there. Come on.
That would be good. So, yeah, we'll be talking about multiverses again soon, I think, because it is officially going like in open beta, whatever, soon. And I think Iron Giant's maybe the only new character now, but I hope Gandalf is kind of the next in the queue. Since we have seen a picture of him like in game, it would maybe lead us to believe that he would be in there soon. But hope we see that. The other game that I wanted to mention is just briefly is Heroes of Newerth. Once again, talked about this recently out of Mana, but they did like at one point. It's not Lord of the Rings, but it's like knockoff Lord of the Rings, and they're not actually using that IP. There's no logo in the game, but specifically they like added some skins in the game, and I got one of them for a character named Scout, and Scout is like he's like a melee carry, and his main thing is that he can go invisible, and then he can like. He can cruise around, and then like when he attacks out of invisibility, he gets like a crazy attack speed buff for a second. And so it was him as Frodo, and so that works perfectly with the invisibility where you're putting on the ring for a bit. I think there's maybe even some sound effects there. And then he also has like a ward that he puts down, like he puts down a little eye, and I feel like it was like the little eye of Sauron or something, which of course doesn't make sense character wise, but it was still like a fun thing to do. And I used a lot of that skin in that game. That was a really fun combination. And like I said, it's knockoff, so it's not like you're getting a voice actor or official lines in there.
Right.
But like all his voice lines were just like Hobbit puns and Lord of the Rings kind of
nice.
references and things like that. So yeah, that was a lot of fun to play as like. I guess it was Frodo. I think it was more of just like a mix match because I also think on his back was like a frying pan and stuff. So he looked a bit like Samwise, but it was obviously kind of like just an amalgam of the look of the Hobbits in general. So that was fun. Yeah.
I mean, on that note, because League of Legends, same certainly again another MOBA. Like they have many skins that were definitely. I don't want to just say ripped because it's kind of harsh, but it was basically just like ripped from those things where it's like this is like a Gandalf skin, but they just don't like advertise it for that because obviously licensing things. But one and like there's probably quite a few that I'm just not thinking of. But the first one that comes to mind is there's a mage called Veigar. He's this like short little mage dude, and they had a skin. It's called Veigar Greybeard, and it literally just looks like Gandalf, and he's riding on an eagle, actually like on like
that's cool.
the image. So it's like okay, that's clearly for Gandalf right there. And he actually has another skin, which is the White Mage. So it's just like, again, it's probably very much inspired.
That's cool. I just looked up an image. That looks really fun.
Yeah, it looks really cool there. And like, I think there's like an archer character that has like an elf skin that makes it look exactly like Legolas. And I don't remember all of them, but I'm sure there's quite a few that were, if not ripped, at least inspired by Lord of the Rings. So
yeah, there were a few more in Heroes of Newerth. I don't remember what they were. I remember specifically. I think they were kind of expensive. They knew they had some gold there, so they're like, you gotta pay top dollar for this. And I'm like, okay, at least for the Hobbit one, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we can cruise into our next game, which I think is also kind of a game that features Lord of the Rings stuff. Tell me about this Total War thing.
Yeah. So it's called Third Age Total War. I think it's a standalone mod, meaning like you don't need any additional things. Like it's just like you download this. This is like a complete overhaul of the actual game. Like it changes, I think, game systems, but like it changes a bunch of factions and maps and stuff. Like it's pretty. First of all, shouts out to modders out there. Like they do this for free. Obviously, they have donations and Patreons, things like that.
Yeah.
Support your local modders because they do absolutely fantastic work. Like that's like for me, like. I love Skyrim. It's probably one of my favorite games, but I feel like I can't even compare vanilla Skyrim to like modded Skyrim. It's just such a different experience for me. And specifically with Total War Medieval 2, it's a game that came out many years ago. It was the first Total War game I played. Same genre as like Total War Warhammer. Like that's the one I was talking about on a side quest not too long ago. But this one, it completely changes all the factions and it changes the map to just Middle Earth. Like it's literally just like a Middle Earth like overhaul. It's so cool because you can choose to basically like be like the forces of Gondor or like Rohan, like all like the different sub factions. I don't think there's hobbits, but there's so yeah, like Gondor. I think Angmar is one of them too, but like definitely
Nice.
Mordor, like the forces of Mordor, and then I think and like the goblins of the Misty Mountains. That's another faction, and it like completely rid of the map. It's so fascinating. If you, Dylan, or like any audio listeners out there, like just Google it and like go through the different images. It's so impressive. The people that like again just did all of these assets, designed all these different maps. Like they have Minas Morgul, which is like one of my favorite cities ever. Like they did such a good job, and this game is so old, but like they managed to just like make all new textures for it, and it looks so fantastic. They were able to like reskin because medieval 2, like it's just about like it's a historical thing, so there's not like goblins or anything in it. It's all humans, but they make orcs look really good in it. Again, it's not like a 2021 game, so it's a little bit dated, but for what they're working with, it's so impressive. And it's I think medieval 2, like it's still pretty relevant because of the modding community. Like there's another one that's all about like Warcraft. Like they made the whole world like basically the world of Warcraft, and you play as like the different factions, which is really cool. But yeah, when I found this Third Age one, I haven't played it yet. I was mostly just watching like a YouTube video on it, but I'm definitely going to be downloading this and jumping in there and having a lot of fun, because as I said, like medieval 2, that was the first Total War game that I played personally. I had a lot of fun with it. It's now like a mobile game that just goes to show like how old it is. Like you do not need a PC to run it. Like it's just so, yeah, it's just so dated in that regard. But yeah, the Third Age mod, I think it's like a couple, like it's probably like 4 or 5 gigabytes. Like it's a decent chunk, and I'm assuming they had multiple people working on it, but whoever like pushed that like into motion, shout out to them, because it's really it looks fantastic, and all the details, like I said, like whether it's the armor pieces, there's even like heroes, which would be like your iconic heroes, like because it's like early Third Age, it's not exactly like the events like Fellowship, like it's not really that that era. It's the earlier stuff. So like Osgiliath is still kicking. That's one of the, and they did such a good job, because there's like Eastern and Western Osgiliath, because Osgiliath, as you've seen in like Return of the King, it's just crumbled. It's almost like it's a strategic point for like the forces of Gondor to kind of hold, but it's just like in ruin, when that used to be the actual capital.
That's the place where Faramir and crew are kind of hanging out at one point.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just this like old decrepit town, you know, and like that used to be the capital of Gondor. So to see it in this, like just thriving, it's so cool. And yeah, if you own that game, and it's completely free. So again, I can't love modders enough more than I do. Like support your local modder, because they do so much work, and it's fascinating what they can do.
That's amazing. Okay, let's jump into some board games. Or do you have any other video games that weren't on the list that you want to mention? Because we should probably do that before we jump into these board games.
No, we covered. I mean, apparently there's like 60 games that we missed. Or like
I know, right?
Games. But, no, all the ones that I could think of. That's it.
We did our best. So yeah, board game wise, first I want to quickly shout out the movie tie-in board games that just look like the movie cover and all that, and it's just like the retelling of those stories where you're essentially like placing tiles. There's like little props, and you're moving characters around a board. I had 2 of them, and the cool part about it was like, let's say I had Fellowship and 2 Towers. I think I had Return of the King. Maybe I had 2 Towers and Return of the King and not Fellowship for some reason. Whatever it was, these boards, you could like connect them together if you had like the multiple sets, and it would combine into one thing. And there was like the point tracker was like this little cardboard thing, and then you like move a ring around it, and that's like how you count how many points you have. I played this with my friend somewhat. I don't know if we were too young to understand all the rules, or if it just wasn't very good, but we like never really understood it and never really engaged with it how we were supposed to. But I would still frequently, as a kid, like set up the boards and like just do my own little fantasy story, play around, move the tokens around, check out the cards and all this fun stuff. So I don't think they were the best by any means, and I don't think I have them anymore. If that'd be fun to whip those out and see what they're like these days. But quick shout outs to that. But the main one I wanted to shout out here, and the why we even have this board game section in here for me, is Lord of the Rings Risk, which truthfully, of all the games we've talked about, I probably played Lord of the Rings Risk more than any of them individually for me. I love this game. I still have it. It's great. Me and my friends would play it all the time growing up. I've probably played, I don't know, 30 games of this in my life. I've played a ton of this. It's great. It's got four different factions, so like up to 4 players. And it's weird. It's kind of like, you're either the good or bad guys. And the good guys, I think the 3 pieces are like an elven archer, a rider of Rohan, and then the eagles. That's like your big unit. And then for the bad guys, it's like just a little orc dude, and then like a ring wraith, and then I think a troll. Yeah, the trolls were like the big unit for it. And I just love those little pieces. There was like red and black for the bad guys, green and yellow for the good guys. And yeah, I just had like the Lord of the Ring. I feel like this is the only reason why I understand anything about what the Lord of the Ring, like what the Middle Earth map is like. It's because I've played this game so much. I'm like, okay, I know exactly how close, you know, Isengard and all these things are, and I know where the dead marshes are. And it actually has given me a good sense of scale of like, okay, what is the journey that they take, like from the Shire down to Mordor and all that? Like, how far is that journey? Because there is also like I don't know if I don't think it's necessarily a single player part of it, but maybe it was. But essentially, there's like a story version to it as well. There's different cards that give you like essentially random events that would pop up that you'd fight. And on the map, it also shows the trail that the Fellowship take, or at least I guess Frodo.
That's really cool.
The path that Frodo takes to get all the way down to the very end. So have you played this one? I have a few more notes, but have you played this one at all?
No, I've never even heard of this
game.
Actually.
I should bring this for the 24-hour stream. We should get a
100%
camera going. I'd be so down to play. That'd be fun.
That's fantastic. I love Risk, so like I think that's totally up my alley.
Yeah, it's other than the story mode, like it is a standard Risk game, so it's janky, it's very luck dependent, but it also, you know, depending on how well you know the board and use your cards and all that stuff, you can, you know, be better or worse at it. But yeah, I just remember like certain areas like Mordor it was a specifically interesting area because there's only like, I believe only one entrance point to it. Like there's mountains all around the one side, and then it's like closed off on the right side where the map kind of cuts off. And so that one was like, it doesn't necessarily give you the most points, but it's so easy to defend that it's a good one to pick up because you can stack all your units on that one entrance tile and then just have one unit on like all the inner ones because you know they're gonna have to go through that huge tank before you get there. But then there's other ones like I can't remember the name of the area, but it's like there's like red area of the map. What would be like at the north of the Middle Earth map that we would normally know?
It's like basically like Angmar and like Arnor is up there.
I think Arnor is what it's called in the game, I believe, which is like if you have the whole territory. But I remember that area, it gives you a fuck ton of points if you control all of it, or like whatever, you get so many more units next turn. But it's so hard to defend, right? Because there's so many different entrance points from like the east with like the whatever that place is called, and like Mirkwood has entrance up there. From the Shire you can get there from like these other hidden passageways, so that one's really hard to defend. And then there was like boats along the coast, so those are like kind of shortcuts that you can use to get from like the bottom area, which is normally only has one entrance point, but because of that boat you can kind of backdoor through there. I love it so much. It visually looks great. The pieces are I mean, they're little cheap plastic pieces, but they look awesome. So I love Lord of the Rings Risk, and I haven't played in a few years. I think because I eventually got like a Risk Legacy set, which like not Lord of the Rings, and so that's whenever me and my friends were playing Risk, that would be the one we go to because there's kind of some continuity to it, and we'd maybe played out Lord of the Rings Risk, but I love it so much. It's in my living room right now. One of my favorites. Love that one.
That's awesome. No, yeah, like I said, like I love Risk, and I obviously love Lord of the Rings, so this would be really up my alley. I love it.
And you're over there with the Lord of the Rings Monopoly, which I've never played. So tell me about this.
I've actually never played this either, but I've been described this one in detail to a coworker of mine, and I never heard of it. And then I brought it up on cast, and Travis told me that I think like Emily and the girls like actually got Travis this for Christmas or something.
Ooh.
So we'll definitely have to play it on the podcast at some point.
Yeah, have a board game night. Yeah.
Because, you know, like you've seen all your different Monopoly versions of whatever. It might be Star Wars, Marvel. Like they just have so many different spin-offs. I have a Kelowna one, funny enough. Kelowna on board Monopoly.
Wow, I did not know that existed. That's fun.
Yeah. Maybe another 24-hour stream. You know, we'll do all the Monopoly.
Is Rutland just like the cheap ass area or what?
No, it's been a long time since I played it. It's at my parents' house. I'll have to dig it out. But for this one, it was very interesting because you have like your classic Monopoly things to it, but there's like a ring system where like as you progress, the ring gets closer to Mount Doom, and like it just has a whole new dynamic to the game. Obviously,
that's
like
cool.
The map, it has.
So is that like a countdown then mechanic? How does that work?
I think it's I think if I remember correctly, it's like if you land on a certain square, it'll advance it, and I think it's like I think the game honestly just ends like once the ring gets there.
Oh,
and then
okay.
maybe like once it's done, then like that's when you count out like who actually.
Sure, that makes sense.
Because yeah, there's still like the same locations. I think like the last one is Barad-dûr, like basically where Mount Doom is. And then like right at the beginning, like the first tile is Hobbiton. So it's kind of funny because you're kind of following like the journey that Frodo kind of did of like his start point to his end point.
Right.
But yeah, like it's still got a jail card, a free parking place, so like to an extent it is still Monopoly. Instead of like cash money, it's actually like coins. I think that's really cool. And yeah, like I think you get items and stuff. So like I said, unfortunately I haven't played it myself, so I can't go into too many details, but I just think the idea of this is so cool, and it makes it something more than just what Monopoly is, you know, like it actually brings it special. All the figurines are so cool too. It's actually the Fellowship. I would definitely be just hogging that Gandalf piece probably every single time I play it. But yeah, I know. And then there's a couple other figurines. Like there's one, it looks like it's Minas Tirith. I don't know exactly what that does. Maybe those represent like the mansions or hotels, I think it is in Monopoly.
Right.
So it's probably something like that. And the dice too are so cool. It's like black and I think it has like the Eye of Sauron, and then that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. I remember Devin. Thank you. Shouts out to Devin at work that was explaining this to me. So when you roll the Eye of Sauron, that's what actually moves the ring.
Yeah, I just Googled the dice. Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So and like just the board in general, it looks so cool. God, I love Lord of the Rings, but that's definitely one. It's on my wish. It's so funny on Amazon. You can like have your wish list, and it's just like a bunch of different Lord of the Rings board games, puzzles for me, things like I probably shouldn't buy right now, maybe, but it's a good gift idea. So definitely will. And then sorry.
Well, I was just gonna take us somewhere else and just kind of shout out the I guess it was Trivial Pursuit that we played, or if not, it was another trivia game that we did on GeekVerse. So shout out to that one. I don't know if we have much to say there. It's just a trivia game with a board. But that was a lot of fun because there was just a ton of questions about like the production of it and like Weta or Weta, whatever it was that like, you know, did the special effects and all this stuff. It's like, man, some of the stuff went way over my head, and I realized how many of these details that I just don't know about, like how many hairs was this person gifted, like all this stuff. I'm like, wow, a lot of this, yeah, you're answering 3. I don't know. There was so much stuff in there. It was crazy over my head, but then some of them I was like, okay, I got this. So, yeah. That was a lot of fun playing that game as well.
I definitely want to play that one again because I feel like we played that before I really like cannonballed into Tolkien lore. So I should know a lot more answers. It like keeps me up at night sometimes where I'm like, I can't believe I couldn't remember Galadriel's name. And she's like one of my favorite elven characters.
Yeah, that's pretty savage.
But I remember like on the trivia, I'm like, I'm blanking here. Like I just can't think of who this character is. But yeah, Lady Galadriel. That one keeps me
good
up
times
at night sometimes.
The other
one, just
go ahead.
My last board game I wanted to mention. This is again another one I haven't played yet, but it looks so interesting to me. This is another one I added to my wish list. It's called it's by Fantasy Flight Games, which they do their own games, I guess. It's called Lord of the Rings: Journeys in Middle Earth, and it's very, very interesting because it's almost like a D&D sort of game, but you like instead of crafting your own character and stuff, like you get given like a character card and like different items and stuff that you use. And this is a game you can actually play solo, which I found very interesting. Like you can kind of just set up the game, and then I think just because it's kind of random cards you get, like you'll have different situations and stuff, but looks very, very interesting to me. Again, like I will get my hands on this at some point, and hopefully we'll do whether it's on stream or just us together, like playing this game. It looks really cool. I think it's up to 5 players total.
Okay.
But it looks really, really interesting. And so if you're out there listening, Google this game. It looks really, really cool. You kind of like set up different tiles and stuff, and like that's like your playing map. I think like it says the games are like around 60 minutes, so nothing too crazy. But yeah, I'd never heard of it before, and it looks really, really cool. And it's a different type of like tabletop game than I'm normally used to. But
cool.
Yeah.
Let's then take our last ad break here, and then we'll come back and just talk about some of the things that we would like to see from Lord of the Rings games in the future. Kirklin, we are back. So, as we mentioned right now, Warner Bros. is holding on to that IP, and I don't see them getting rid of it anytime soon or giving it out in any way, especially in the gaming front, just because of the Rings of Power show, which is going to have many seasons, so they're probably going to want to hold on to that. But really, only I'll say non-mobile game, like even AA, AAA close to that sort of thing that we know about is Lord of the Rings Golem. I don't think there's any other ones that have been announced. If they are, I don't even know about them, so please enlighten me if anyone does know about any that I should put my eye on. Even if it's a smaller game, like I'll definitely, put it on my list and maybe check it out. We talked about Lord of the Rings Golem a lot last week because there was a trailer, so I don't think we need to go too deeply on that, but I guess just to say that, like, man, that's kind of the only like big thing in the gaming sphere that we have to look forward to, right? And that's I think a bit disappointing because I mean the game maybe doesn't look the best, but also I just don't know if it's like at the scale of something we necessarily want from the Lord of the Rings games right now. So that's a bit unfortunate, but maybe Rings of Power will be the thing that breaks down that door, and maybe Warner Bros is like, okay, we can't handle all this stuff that we want to make with this new world, this new setting of Lord of the Rings. So maybe at that point they'll release the IP a little bit, get some other studios in there to make some other games.
Yeah, 100%. Like you just commented on like the Rings of Power thing. I really hope that just first of all, I hope it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then second of all, I hope it just brings Lord of the Rings just back into like the limelight where it's just really relevant. Like it's really relevant to my life right now, but for like the average viewer and like user, like I just hope people are just talking about Lord of the Rings again, and then it gets video game developers just wanting to do like realizing like, oh my god, there's so much good things that we can do with this world, and just really branch out to just put out a bunch of games. Because like there's like plus 60 games for Lord of the Rings in the years, and those probably all kind of came out around the time of the movies. So I'm hoping that since this show's coming out, really big budget show, I hope it just bangs that drum and gets people making more Lord of the Rings games. And then like talking about Gollum, there's like not dissonant by any means, but it's just like I don't think I would have put that like
no
like high on my list of like video games that I want for Lord of the Rings. It's cool that it's a thing, I guess, but yeah, I think I would have gone in a lot of different directions for that one because like I Lord of the Rings is definitely like it's like my favorite thing right now, but I still I don't know, like I'm not scratching the bit to get my hands on this Golem game, even though it is Lord of the Rings, right? So.
Yeah. So just talking about, like, I guess let's stay on the Rings of Power train for a little bit here. I hope this happens. I feel like I'm feeling maybe pretty confident that it will, assuming Rings of Power is good and does have those seasons, which I think it already has been confirmed to have, and it becomes a big deal for the next few years. I think a Lego game is imminent. It's probably not going to happen now, but maybe in a few years when there's more seasons out and they can make a more like full journey with it. I think that would be cool, and I'd be super down for that. Once again, just tons of great characters in there. Add a little like comedic twinge to what the story is going to be there. And so I definitely would check out that one. But staying in the Rings of Power kind of headspace, is there any thing that you maybe expect or would like to see? And obviously the show's not out yet, so we're just assuming we're going to like it at this point because we liked the recent trailer. But let's say we do like the show, like what would you like to see from Rings of Power specifically in the gaming world?
It's interesting because like it's tough to see if it's going to be like one of those like political heavy shows where like it's a lot of diplomatic talks and stuff like that. Because then if they're going that realm, maybe I'll be like, oh, I would love to get like a I don't know, a city managing game or like a more kind of like an RTS, but like RTS in my mind is just mostly about like attacking and stuff, but like more of a managing and like just working in that realm. It's kind of niche. I feel like maybe that wouldn't be like their first big game genre that they put out, but
I'm glad you mentioned that because that was on my list of one of my pitches. Is like I'd love a builder game because we had Battle for Middle Earth, but I think like a more low key thing where it's not necessarily about the combat so much. Civ, like I know Civ does have a lot of combat in it, but even just in terms of like how you're laying out towns, but even just seeing like how would you build a dwarven kingdom in the mountains versus an elven kingdom where you're having to mess with the landscape and the trees versus just a traditional more city of the men that have like just more straightforward in terms of the development. But like a builder game I think could be really cool, just like playing with these different kind of structures and styles and whatnot. So that's something I'd like to see as well, not necessarily like Rings of Power only, but I just think like a Lord of the Rings thing in general could be really cool with that. Like, picture like a Shire, making like a Shire village, like that would be so fun as well, working with the terrain in specific ways.
And like just adding on to that, like I feel like a building would be awesome, but also like the managing side of it, because as we see in Return of the King, like Denethor managing Minas Tirith, like it's not going well. Like public order is so low. So like what what caused that, you know, like maybe you have to build these to like keep off like the corruption of like Minas Morgul like creeping up on your lands, and then like let's say you're managing like a shire, like you got to just make sure you got ale, you know,
Yep,
and, like
resources and all that. Yeah,
exactly. Like you got to make sure that people are happy, and like that keeps up public order. It helps you just expand out your thing. So I think honestly, like I think initially I thought it might be like a little bit too niche, but I think there's plenty of space to do that in a Middle Earth setting. So that's definitely tie my list there. But so getting back to Rings of Power, I wouldn't be Kirklin Patzer if I didn't bring up an RTS game. I you know, like we have Battle for Middle Earth. If we're not getting a remake of that, just make a whole new one. And I think if we're like, especially on the topic of Rings of Power, let's do one in a completely different age than we've seen before. You know, like it might be tough for a developer to just get the source material correct, or at least accurate for that era, because Middle Earth has gone through so many different changes, like throughout its different ages. Like since the first age, like there's just a completely section of the continent that's just flooded. Like we just don't even see it in where we are in the third age. But I don't know, maybe make that like a thing, and then like we just have such a bigger map. And like also I feel like this might be a benefit too of like the Rings of Power show, but like when you're not, like when you're really far away from the timeline that people are really familiar with, I feel like you have a lot more leeway with like maybe flexing the canon, like you know, to just to kind of fit your narrative of the game that you're trying to make. But I think that could be really fun too, because another thing that I'm really pumped for in the Rings of Power is just like the relevancy of the elves. Like in the third age, they're kind of just like leaving Middle Earth, like they're kind of like advisors for like like mostly anything, but like especially the trailer that you saw of like Galadriel like leading her forces into battle, like we're gonna be seeing a lot of that. So if we have like that type of era RTS game, which again it's kind of like what Battle for Middle Earth was, but like you could just have a full elven force, or maybe like the dwarves are just a lot more relevant, right? So you could have like a full dwarven kingdom. So I would really want a game like that, and I think it would fit with the timing of Rings of Power, because we're going to be seeing those forces. Like obviously you have the Numenorians, like you are going to still see men being men and leading their forces into battle, but not just have like a dwarf with the men like fighting, you know, like have like a full army of dwarves. Like how do their strategies like work if it's a full army of dwarves? Like they all know kind of what they're doing, you know, and like just their war machines. Like I've seen their architecture, but like what could they make for like a trebuchet equivalent of like a dwarven made one, right? You know, like I would imagine that's incredibly more intricate than what like a human one would be, right? Like, so I think that could be really fun, and I think it would tie in well with the timing of Rings of Power, because we're going to be seeing that on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think another one too, like a continuation. I'd love to see a new Conquest game, because I think that just still fits. I think that is still a modern enough genre that people are into it. And obviously there was there was actually 2 new Battlefront games, right, in the recent, like maybe the last 5 or 6 years, I'll say. And I think they had like a moderate success to them, but like the reason for making those was, okay, the new Star Wars trilogy is out. Let's get these out there. You got new heroes that you can play as. There's new like champion level characters, whatever it is, and just like revisit that same gameplay style that is still good. And I think Conquest could be a great way to do that too, where we're gonna get introduced to so many fun characters, or even just, you know, Galadriel and Elrond, like different versions of those characters. And I think Conquest would be a fun way to tackle that in a way. And you know, there's like we even talked about like that animated movie that was announced recently, too. Like there's a lot going on in the Lord of the Rings world, and I think Conquest would be a good way to input characters in a way that you don't have to make it super story relevant. It could just be like you can throw Bilbo in there with like Galadriel from, you know, Rings of Power, with like a modern day Aragorn. Like you can throw all these characters in there, and who cares if it makes sense or not? It's still just fun to have all these kind of heroes against each other. So I don't know. I think Conquest is one out of the list that I mean, Battle for Middle Earth, I agree with you. An RTS would also be sweet, but I think Conquest is one that is also easier to market than an RTS is these days. So I think that's like a freebie. Like please do that.
Absolutely. Another type of game, I mean, you kind of talked about it earlier, but like is a tactics type game.
Yeah.
I finally picked up Into the Breach. I've been playing that quite a bit and having lots of fun with it.
Oh, I love that.
I feel like it would just, you know, like you get in there, maybe you can choose, kind of pulling from Fire Emblem, but like how you can choose like a good campaign or a bad campaign. I think that could be so fun. Like you have like a giant cave troll as like one of your units, and then like you know, like again, it's probably pretty damn difficult to make those games, but you don't have to like like dedicate a bunch of like I don't know. I don't want to be harsh here, but I feel like those types of games aren't like the AAA like I don't even know what I would give an example. Like a Halo type game, like like a turn-based tactics. Like I feel like that's a little bit simpler to do than like Halo Infinite. So I feel like I feel like there's room for it for sure. And then you can have a bunch of different characters. You can have a bunch of different factions, as I was talking about, and that could be lots of fun. And so I'm hoping that we get that, because tactical games are very, very fun.
Yeah. I don't know if one existed other than that GBA version of the Third Age. Which, I mean, that is like, that's not necessarily what you want. Like, maybe it's all right, but it's not what we're looking for. And so I don't know if another one has existed. I couldn't find one in my researching, but yeah, I think it makes sense. We saw Firaxis, who was doing XCOM for a while. Now they're doing Midnight Suns. I would love if the next thing they picked up was Lord of the Rings game, like setting that, because I think that sort of style actually works really, really well. Would work really, really well of, like even just the fellowship of 9 characters, like that's a perfect amount of characters to have in like a Fire Emblem level. So like that, like level of like having your party and maybe having more party management stuff of like, okay, we'll put this guy into the battle here, or we got to put Samwise in this one because he has like some support abilities that will really help in this defense mission. Like stuff like that, I think could be really, really cool, and I'd love to see it explored again in like just a different style. Like you could copy the Fire Emblem look, the look of XCOM, that sort of very traditional grid base, or you could do something different, but I think it would fit really well, so I'd love to see that.
You put Boromir with Frodo, and he ends up just like stabbing your own character and taking the ring from him.
Yeah, he just, backstabs the team. That would suck. Another thing I would be down for is I'm thinking of like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order as like a template for a game that I would really like to see, where you take a character like an Aragorn and put them in like these, just third-person action games where you're kind of exploring these levels that have some interconnected like layers to them, things like that. Just something on a smaller scale, because I think a lot of these games, I mean, look at how many of the games we've talked about have like battle or war in the title of them as the subtitle. Like that's a big thing with Lord of the Rings, is the scale. But I think you could also get pretty far with a smaller scale game with just like a few enemies at a time, these smaller levels that you're kind of checking out. Like you said, the ruins of Osgiliath. What was the name? What was that place near Gone?
Osgiliath.
Yeah, like I think you could make a really cool level there of like, okay, just unlocking different parts of it, coming back, exploring it from different ways. You maybe get different abilities that allow you to access different areas of it. I think that could be really cool. And, just focus on like one character's story. It doesn't need to be a big world-ending thing, just one character, finding their way. Even like make it like a multiverse thing. Like, when Aragorn falls off that cliff into the river, like, make it that story. When he wakes up and you're just like, it's just him for like 10 hours. Like, what is he doing as he gets back to the crew? Like, I'd love to see something like that. Yeah. And I'm using Aragorn as an example because he's my man. But, like, once again, you could take a new character and tell a new character within this world with just like a smaller story that wouldn't really change the events of the rest of the big stuff. That you don't want to have to retcon anything, but just like a simple story like that.
100%. Like with pretty much every character that's in like the movies and books that we know, like there is instances that we just don't know what happened with them. Like maybe they were, I don't know, we'll carry on with your Aragorn example. Like when he was just a ranger, like there was a lot of things that he was doing that like, okay, we hear about, but like you don't get all of those details. Like maybe it's actually him traveling through the wilds. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking of this idea. This is so fun. So I think there's definitely, I mean, there's always been a place for that, but definitely with Rings of Power kind of banging that Lord of the Rings or Middle Earth just drum. I think it's very possible that we could be seeing something like that, because Jedi Fallen Order was, I think, mostly like very well received. Like I think everybody said it was a good, if not great, game. So that's fantastic.
I just have one more kind of pitch, but I'm curious if you had anything else on your list here.
I got a couple. Very quickly, I was gonna say like I feel like they could do a remake of those movie tie-in games, kind of like I don't know if it'd be a complete gameplay restructure of like what happened with the Skywalker. Is that what it was called? The Skywalker Saga?
I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. So like where that kind of changed like the systems, but I think that they could just totally like just kind of redo it and just polish it, make it fun.
Maybe merge it into one game for the Lord of the Rings story.
Yeah, exactly. And then another one would be like a Left 4 Dead type game, actually.
Oh, I love that.
So
that's cool.
Have you ever played Vermintide? Or yeah, we've talked about this game before.
We've talked about Vermintide. I still have not played it.
Yeah, okay. So that one is like Left 4 Dead, but it's essentially like this. Like you have swords and stuff, and you're killing ratmen, and there's some characters that have magic. So that would be kind of like the skin, I think, that I'd be taking from. But just throw in a Lord of the Ring world. Like there's so many instances of our heroes just like taking on orcs and stuff. So you could have like a Parth-Galen map, which is like the end of Fellowship, like just going through the forest, and you just have the Uruk-hai like running at you, just waves of enemies, and then they're like it's pretty easy to like see that like game kind of being made of like the different boss battles and stuff. Maybe there's like a Balrog section.
Yeah,
that could be really fun. And I think it's one of those things too. It doesn't have to be tying into the movies. Like it could just be like its own adventures. It could be 4 characters who one's a man, one's an elf, one's a dwarf. Like and like they're not characters that we know of. They could be completely like made up characters for this game. But I think that would really fit. And it would be so much fun to travel through there. And then the other one is Total War, Lord of the Rings. I keep memeing
an
that,
official version.
An official, because for me, like when I'm playing Warhammer, I just kind of skin it as Lord of the Rings. Like I don't have any mods that change it or anything, but like I listen to Lord of the Rings theme song when I'm playing as the Dark Elves. They're essentially like Sauron's forces. The leader Malekith is literally called the Witch King, so it's like it's so inspired by that. But if they had like part of me kind of wishes it doesn't happen, because I've spent a lot of money on like DLCs and stuff for like Warhammer. I would kind of just like bench that game. I feel like if I actually got a Lord of the Rings one, but I would still buy it if it came out. And then the other one that I think I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't happened yet, and I do think this will happen, especially tying in with the timing of the Rings of Power, is like a VR game like with Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it would be like I don't know if you're playing as like Gollum and you're like crawling through the ground or anything like that, or if it would be like just like I think they had like an Iron Man experience where you don't really do much. You're just kind of like, it's like a level or something. I could see them doing something like that. Maybe you're like seeing through the eyes of an eagle and you're just like traversing through Middle Earth. I think I don't have VR, so I don't have much skin in the game, but I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened already. But maybe Power will just put a lot more relevance into it.
I just Googled it. Oh no, this is not at all what I was. I Googled VR, and this actually, I heard about this before, where it's like an app, a phone app that essentially like you just walk in real time, like Pokemon Go or something like that, and it tracks like how far you are in the journey that Frodo took to get.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of that before, but that's what I found when I searched VR. But yeah, I don't think there's definitely not a proper VR experience, so that would be cool.
Yeah, and like I'm not saying you have to like have a full game that you're playing in VR like that, but like it could just very much be an experience. Like maybe you're going through different sequences of the movies through the eyes of the character. That could be so cool, especially like I don't have a VR, so I don't know like the state of it, like if they've really like made the graphics look good and everything, where it looks really real. But like maybe you're in the eyes of Isildur, like when you see his father fallen and you look up and Sauron's just like towering over you. Like I think that could be so good. And if I had a VR, I would personally purchase that. And then maybe there's a section, where you're like Gandalf staring down like the Balrog, like Durin's Bane. Like that could just be so epic, especially when you're actually in the world. I think that could be really cool. Another quick example I had is like Bilbo, which you recently saw in that animated movie of The Hobbit, when he's doing like the game of riddles with Gollum.
Right.
In the actual books, it's stated that like it's like basically pitch black, so that could be really good. Where maybe you're like solving riddles,
interesting.
And then if you get it wrong, like you just hear Gollum like creeping up closer to you, like ready to like break your neck. That could be like terrifying, especially when you're in the VR. So I think there's a lot of cool possibilities. And again, like I said, like I'm kind of surprised I didn't do it already, because it seems like we've had like a Batman VR game, an Iron Man VR game, like a lot of different just kind of experience type situations. But I definitely think there's a lot of room for a Middle Earth one.
Nice. I love that. My last pitch, and this is not fully formed by any means, but I think there's two elements of Lord of the Rings that I want to see like done in a game. One of them is like the ability to kind of create and manage a party. Like that's a big thing for me, is like looking at the Fellowship and looking at their different strengths and maybe the weaknesses, you could say. The Hobbit does this too. It's a bit trickier because like it's hard for me to remember each individual one of the dwarves, but still like they have a team of people that are going on this journey together. It's not one person. It's never like 3 people like a Harry Potter sort of thing. It's always like these bigger parties. And I'd love something like I haven't played Wasteland, but it's high on my list of things that I want to knock off my backlog. But it seems like in Wasteland, it's like you probably before you even start playing the game, you just spend like hours creating your party of like giving all these backstory traits to your characters, picking classes and styles, personalities, looks, names, all that kind of stuff, and just building up your party kind of in a D&D character builder sort of way. And I'd love to do that for a game where it's really I think for me, like the other part of this, the second part that I was alluding to, is kind of the more survival, like simmy elements of it. This is something we talked about a little bit yesterday on our cast, and we'll talk about when we're talking about the Lord of the Rings movies. Is I love that travel sequence, which is such a big part of this. Like the journey is the story here and like like they cut some of this stuff from the theatrical release of the movies, but just like where they camp out for the night and like what they're eating, how they're surviving on the day to day. And I really want to experience that part of it. Like just like think Oregon Trail, but like blow that up to like a big AAA level game where you can like plan out where you're going to camp for the night somewhere that's maybe safe, but also has all the amenities that you could need. Where are you getting food? What kind of stuff are you going to pack on the horses? If you, let's say, you only have 2 horses, what are you going to decide to keep? What's essential? What's not? Like, are you going to carry extra weapons? Or are you going to like put more food in there? Like that kind of thing, I think could be really fun, especially combined with that party thing where you're kind of strategizing a team around like, okay, I'm going to put an elf on my team because I want that range combat. Maybe for like, I'll put like the Aragorn type as the kind of leader guy, the Gimli type as maybe more of a tanky kind of character. Or you could do like challenge runs where it's like, okay, this playthrough, my 10-man party is going to be a bunch of fucking hobbits. I'm going to see if I can beat this game on the hardest difficulty with a team of hobbits. So we're obviously have a lot of weaknesses on our team, but maybe we can like play a more stealthy approach to the adventure and not deal with combat as much. So in this unformed idea, I don't know if it's truly an open world game. I don't know if it's more like simulating the travel and then you're kind of doing actions for the events. I don't know what's going on there. I haven't fully pictured that out. But I think taking the party aspect of these things and the survival element of it is something that I think has not really been explored in these other Lord of the Rings games. Like there is maybe resource gathering and battle for Middle Earth and things like that, but I feel like there isn't really something that's more zoomed in on one party and what that experience is like, and setting up camp and working with what you got to make medicine, finding maybe the right like leaves out in the wild that can like what is like that plant that they're gathering in Fellowship to like stop the
King's Root, I think.
Yeah, like maybe you can like stock up on King's Root if you find that, or you can like spend some time to try and like find some stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Because I really just I want like a game like this where I can just like exist in the world, and it's not necessarily about that destination, but more about that journey. So I don't know what the story is. I don't know how you market that either. Like this is definitely a long shot, but what I'm getting is I want to see something in this style in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's something I'd like to see.
Yeah, man, that's definitely something that's never been tackled before in the Lord of the Rings games, at least, and that sounds awesome. Like everything you're pitching, I'm so mad at myself though, because there's a game I cannot think of the name. I don't remember if I saw it on the Nintendo store. Maybe you'll be able to like just pull it out of your brain because you just know video games like this. But the idea of it is you're kind of managing like a medieval party, but like you're not adventuring with them. You're like dealing with like the realist. Like the real, like the realism of it. Like this person just lost like a compatriot, so they're like their mental is very low, and like it's. Oh my gosh!
I don't think I know exactly what you're talking about, but it sounds like Darkest Dungeon Wildermyth came out last year, which is kind of a similar thing where it's very much about the party and things like that. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but it does sound cool.
I will find this, and then I'm making a mental note because I will find the game and I'll write down. I'll bring it up probably in another side quest that I'm on. But yeah, it reminded me a lot of what you're talking about, because it's not like you're just going out and like just doing quests like on your own. Like you're actually forming a party and then you're sending them out, and then you don't actually like do it. And then they come back, and then maybe this person died, and like you're kind of choosing decisions. A lot of your decisions are just kind of lose-lose situations, but it's like the lesser of the lose-lose situation.
Sure.
And I loved it because it was a very unique like game in my eyes, because it's tackling those things that you don't ever think about, like the psychological toll of like just losing party members, and then like this person, like you just can't send them out, and it, like to an extent that's kind of what you were reminding me of as you're describing this awesome
Yeah.
game that you're pitching to me.
I mean, is there a Lord of the Rings game where you can sit around a campfire and talk to your party? Like that
No.
that should be
Yeah,
a thing, because
that should be a
that
thing.
is that particular scene happens so many times in the movies,
Yeah.
and therefore the games that are tied into the
Books
movies.
do,
Like it's
for
just
sure.
it's an important part of that world, like the character building, the bonding. Like the bonding is such a big part of these stories. So I think that's a game that could kind of focus on that more. And yeah, I don't know if it's tied. I don't know if it's like you're building your version of the Fellowship and you're going on that same journey. I don't know if it's the characters that and then you're just doing the sim elements with them rather than creating them. But I think there's something in there that could be explored. So any studios out there, if you hit me up, I'll join you as a creative director, and we can make this game happen. I got a lot more ideas in the old noggin here that I could put together in a more consistent way. But that was kind of my last pitch. But I mean, I think truly there is so much. Like we talked about multiverses. Like I would be down for a whole platform fighter that's only Lord of the Rings characters. I would love to make a 40-man roster and like see that go ham. Like there's a ton of stuff we could do in that space. So yeah, but I think for today that was kind of all my ideas. Any other games or pitches or things that we haven't mentioned yet that you wanted to tackle today?
No, I think we covered it all. That was fantastic.
Cool.
2+ hours. That was good talk on some Lord of the Rings nostalgia games. I like it.
Yeah, I didn't know how long it would take us to get through all that, but that was a good, fun time. And like I said, I plan on picking up some of these games, some of these older like licensed games, and I'll bring them up more on the podcast. Maybe we'll do another episode of this at some point because I know Travis wanted to talk about some stuff as well. So maybe we'll do another Sidequest episode later on if we feel the need. But if not, we'll talk about it in the games we've been playing. And then Lord of the Rings Golem will have a review for that. I'll be playing that at the very least. And yeah, check out all the other Lord of the Rings content we got going on, like retrospectives, our newscast from yesterday. The Rings of Power, we'll be reviewing that on a weekly basis. So that'll be a good time as well. A lot of stuff going on. And yeah, next week, I don't think I shouted this out at the top, but next week I'll be joined by Jessica on Sidequest. She's been on Sidequest partially. She joined me for a part of the episode for the Pokemon review, but I'm excited to have her on for a full episode. And we're going to be reviewing Stray and maybe a couple other games that are coming out. But I'll say Stray for sure. Maybe some other stuff we'll be talking about in the episode. But yeah, that will be a good time. So we will see you next time. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And have a good one. Later.
Bye.